Hello, everyone, and welcome. Hopefully my voice is coming in okay. I think I got my settings right. Nice to see everybody. Distroy says the intro has an intro. Okay, yes. Well, nice to see everybody tonight. Welcome to the Starjump coverage of CitizenCon proper. If you were watching last night, I did a bit of a walkthrough of my initial impressions, but we're going to get a little bit more down and dirty with it tonight. But first and foremost, I have my guest tonight, Dusty Star. Dusty has an amazing YouTube channel that I recently stumbled across. I can't remember how I stumbled across it, but does amazing content. We'll get the link down in chat. Make sure you go over there and follow his channel if you can, or maybe you can help me get that link down there. But Dusty, who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Dusty Star, and I create factory service manuals for Star Citizen ships. So if you think about in the old days when you could fix your own car, manufacturers would put out a service manual that kind of showed you every part, every piece of the car, how it fits together, even from like the doorknobs to the windows and everything. And so, as an avid Star Citizen fan, I've thought we kind of need those for Star Citizen, and especially with engineering coming hopefully next year,
Yeah.
um, having some sort of manual for each ship. And so I've been kind of working my way through the starter ships and the smaller ships and slowly building up to the larger ships and creating a manual for each one. And then each one of those manuals has an accompanying video, which kind of takes that manual and kind of animates it through a video and goes through the upgrade process, testing the ship out with the upgrades and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Why did the Star Citizen community need this, Dusty? Tell us why we need this. Why do we love ships in this way?
I mean, for me, I can only say for me personally, but I love tinkering with my ship. Like,
Yeah.
I want to take all the parts out. I want to take the components out. I want to manually adjust them, tune them.
Mm-hmm.
Things they've shown in the past where components will have subcomponents that you could tune or test,
Which I hope is still
different
coming. I
configurations.
still really hope that's the plan.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'm those things get me super excited, and so I think that all of those little things put together, and with the new engineering stuff, like right now the manuals don't go into the wiring of the ship and
Mm-hmm.
what fuses do what, because not a lot of that stuff is really working that great yet. But looking at some of the newer ships that have some of the engineering stuff in them, it's getting pretty exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, I ran across your stuff. I thought it was really, really cool. And then, as everyone here in the Starjump community at least knows very well, we love covering um, spaceships within this game. Not only the ships themselves, but focusing on the manufacturers, the gameplay loops that all those ships tie into. I have my regular stream on Tuesdays called Shipyard that primarily focuses on ships. But even any of the other content I do, pre-recorded stuff that I used to do a lot of pre-recorded stuff, all that stuff was very, very ship focused. So it's a big thing here. I have a love for it. And so whenever I find other content creators that create stuff that's very ship focused, I love talking with them, interacting with them, and just becoming someone that I can bounce ideas off of. You can hit me with ideas, and there's definitely there's almost like this like unofficial subgroup of Star Citizen ship lovers in terms of content creators, a little Star Citizen ship lovers content creators group that is constantly talking in these like back channels. So that being said, it's great to meet you finally and talk to you and have you on the show. I know we only just recently sort of started this dialogue, but glad to have you on here and to talk about CitizenCon. Obviously, we have 3 new ships to discuss in relation to CitizenCon. We are going to get into that. I guess the first thing though, and we're just going to sort of walk through CitizenCon from top to bottom. Everyone, there may be subjects we spend more time on than others. So bear with us. If we skip over a topic, like if I don't bring a topic up that was discussed at the show, it may be just for the sake of time, right? And it may just because I need to move us along, but we'll try to cover everything. Socially Confused does have a question for you, though, Dusty Star. He says, what are your arcade systems?
I've got some one-up arcades, and so I have the Asteroid Centipede combo, which has like 10 games in it. Let me move my chair here. I've got the Pac-Man, which has Pac-Man, Super Pac-Man, all the Pac-Mans, and then my personal all-time favorite arcade, Miss Pac-Man, and all the old '80s arcades, I guess, are the ones that I cherish.
Yeah, yeah. I have a few too. If no one has seen my basement, obviously on here, it'll stream from the basement, although I probably could because it's a pretty cool backdrop. But we have sort of a dive bar built in our basement, and it's a lot of neon, a lot of dive bar elements, and a lot of arcades. Just got the Mortal Kombat 2 cabinet.
Oh wow,
Not recently. It's a big hit in the in the household. So
yeah, that was great.
yeah. Real quick, one other thing I wanted to announce, everyone, and we will be posting this. You'll see Art post this throughout. He probably already has posted this, but we're running a giveaway. You can go to this link right here. This is a Gleam link. You can get in on that giveaway. It is for a Star Citizen CitizenCon goodies pack. Really, really cool pack. Comes with a Paladin, a flight suit, and some other really cool goodies. I think a Vandal plushie, etc. For those of you curious if I was doing a giveaway for one of the new ships, I probably will. I was hoping it was going to be for tonight, but I don't think CIG has sent any of those out yet. I think because it's the weekend. I think some content creators will probably be giving away some ships starting Monday. So when we get that communication, I don't know yet. We'll have to see. But if that happens, you will all know about it. I'll make sure to post about it, and we'll do it like a formal ship giveaway. But for the time being, we will we'll give away the CitizenCon goodies pack, which is on theme for tonight, right? It's on theme for tonight. But yes, we are talking about Digital CitizenCon, which is what the event we just had yesterday. So from a very top level, Dusty, I'm gonna ask you the first question here before we start just hitting things like bullet pointing the topics that were discussed during CitizenCon. I'm gonna hit you with the first overall thing first, which is what did you think of this year's CitizenCon? Just in broad strokes, nothing specific. What did you think of this year's CitizenCon, especially compared to previous CitizenCons and or just on its own merits?
I thought it was short. I
That seems to be the
I get
consensus.
yeah, it was like, okay, so normally it's a 2-day event with multiple hours per day, and it kind of was just in and out.
Yep.
Which, I guess there was a lot of stuff that I thought we would hear about that we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be that this CitizenCon was really not for us. It wasn't really
It's
for the players. I think it was more for the press.
hmm. Yeah, you know what? I haven't thought about it that way, but I see the point there, and this is something I've been talking about a lot over the past year. And again, I work in marketing, right? So, as my day-to-day job, and I work in film, television industry, do a lot of marketing, have for about 25 years now. And look, we're heading into Squadron's release year. I've been saying that even though the more formal marketing campaign for Squadron hasn't started yet, you can bet your ass that the soft marketing push for Squadron has started, and it's in the form of Star Citizen. It's why there's been a focus on optimization and playability. I think that was to set Star Citizen up in a place that the press, whenever they talk about Squadron 42, don't automatically attach, hey, there's this unplayable game from CIG called Star Citizen.
Hmm.
They want Star Citizen to be running well. So honestly, that kind of makes sense. They showed a lot of gameplay. They showed a lot of stuff that felt. I actually saw this on Spectrum. Someone said you're turning Star Citizen into a game, and that can only be good press when married up to Squadron 42. You know, a Squadron 42 marketing push moving forward. So I think that's a great way of putting it. Um, I think I felt mostly the same. I felt like it was short. I'll say this for CIG, with the exception of Nyx, which we will get into, almost everything shown was a bit of a surprise. Well, Nyx and then the three ships, which we all kind of knew were coming. But that aside, I really was not expecting pretty much anything they talked about. So that was exciting. It's always cool to see and hear stuff you didn't know was coming, right? That's just completely, new and something you weren't prepped for. So that was kind of nice. And by the way, Tavo, thank you for that follow a little bit ago. Bunker Fist and Bingo Winchester, our good buddy Bingo, always helps at Starjump events. Resubscribing for 6 and 27 months. Really appreciate you guys and your ongoing support. Thank you very, very much. Bunker, always keeping the Discord alive. But yeah, I felt it was short. There was some unexpected goodness there, very gameplay focused. It was a lot of gameplay focused on, it was gameplay that was focused on stuff we have now, but just in new locations and new form factors. But it was still kind of existing gameplay, combat, mining, salvaging, a little bit of cargo run. It's all the same stuff we do now, just in new locations. And that honestly kind of makes sense to me when you think that a lot of the locations teams, developers at CIG, they probably have long since been done with Squadron. So they've moved on to Star Citizen. So they're building all these wonderful new sandboxes for us to play in, all these new locations, but the gameplay features team that would create new gameplay to go into that, like hacking and scanning and stuff, I think that stuff's just taking longer because those developers are working on things like the transit refactor, ATC refactor, all those things. Again, the new features haven't stopped. They are being worked on. I just think they're a lot slower now. Because if you go on Spectrum right now, right on the general page, not that Spectrum is always the best barometer for the community, but if you go on there, I would say probably the first 5 posts are people saying they hated CitizenCon. It was a letdown. Nothing new and exciting was shown. And I a little bit disagree with that, but I also see what they're trying to say. They're just saying it in a pretty dramatic way. But it was definitely different, and we're going to get into that here as we break it down step by step. Now, for those of you that joined the Starjump Zoom Hangout, there's a few of us in there. I did a couple giveaways exclusively for them earlier, a couple bundle pack and an ATLS. They are in Zoom. They're going to be allowed, if they want to put their voice in or put a voice comment or question or concern, they're going to be able to raise their hand on Zoom, and I'm going to allow them to come onto the show via voice that question, comment, or concern, and then me and Dusty will respond to it. So kind of a little special thing for the Zoom group tonight. I do want to do a big shout out to everyone on Twitch. Got 56 already in Twitch, and the YouTube is climbing with 125 watching. So thank you all for hanging out tonight. Let's go ahead and dive in because we got a lot of crap to cover. So we'll play the video here in the background, but the first thing I want to talk about is, let me go ahead and fast forward a bit here. We don't have to stick exclusively to this video, but we're going to kind of use it as our backdrop. Let's talk about Nyx. Let's start there. Nyx was revealed, quote unquote, to the world yesterday at CitizenCon. They went through a lot of stuff regarding Nyx. They went through the groups that we're going to run into there. They talked about a little bit about Nyx 1, Nyx 2, Nyx 3. They talked a lot about Nyx coming in a little bit more bare bones at first, and they're going to start to populate it over time. They talked about, some of the backdrop of Nyx, what type of system it is. It's a remote frontier-style system that is neither fully lawless nor heavily policed. It's obviously going to have the usual stuff. It's going to have hostile gangs and people we have to deal with. One huge thing, though, is it's going to be the introduction to the Vanduul into the verse. Pretty exciting. So just the Nyx announcement, for anyone that's watched Starjump stuff will know that this was the most expected thing, right? There's been Nyx files falling into the game client for the last year. As a matter of fact, at IAE, Levski, the entire landing zone was dropped into the game files. It was hidden, but it was actually in the game files that we all received. Me and VMXEO were able to take a look at it. Now, they've done many updates since then, but I'm just saying that the files themselves have been actively going into the client for some time. So let's start there, Dusty. Thoughts on Nix? Overall thoughts, questions, concerns?
Well, as a relatively new player compared to most everyone probably in this channel, I have never been to Levski. I
Hmm.
never got to see what that was like when it was in the game, and so I'm super excited because I've only watched, archival YouTube videos of when it was a real
Yeah.
place. So I'm super excited to get to actually go there and explore that area. Um,
And
as
what?
far as the rest of the system,
Hmm.
I was looking at it through the star map on the RSI website, and it seems like they're changing some of the planets from what I guess I thought originally that system was going to be like. I really didn't expect any habitable planet,
Hmm.
only Levski Station.
Same
And I don't
sort of
know,
thing
maybe I
that happened with
misunderstood.
Pyro, where Pyro was supposed to have like Ruin Station, and that was going to be it, and now it's fully populated. It's almost busier than Stanton at this point.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm opposed to that. Having more places to go, more places to mine resources, and with the dream of base building sometime in the future, having beautiful locations to set up a shop.
Yeah.
You know, my dream is to have a restoration shop in the verse where I fix ships all day.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is for Star System 1.0, we're supposed to get these 5 systems, right? Stanton, Pyro, Nyx, Castra, and Terra ultimately. And whenever I hear people talk about the systems in question, besides our good friend, the astro historian Paul Shelley, who talks about them from a lore standpoint, which is really helpful, by the way. Make sure you go check out his channel. But for the rest of us, I feel like a lot of people sort of almost self-identify with a system, right? They say, "Oh, Nix is my system, right?" Or Castra is the system. That's where I'm going to live. That's where my shop's going to be. So I guess I would throw that to you. What's your system, Dusty? Is it Nix? Is it a different system? Where do you think your in-game persona, your in-game vibe, where does it call home?
I don't know yet because I not all the systems are in.
Yeah.
Currently, my home base is on Microtech,
Hmm.
but only because of convenience for my gameplay loop. But I would love to be at a salvage yard. Like there's salvage yards all over Stanton, and when I'm there, that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
The busted up old ships everywhere. I want to set up a scrap yard and be, fixing up ships. And so
Yeah.
anywhere I can do that, I'm happy. But I really like some of the outposts in Pyro that have that like sunken in little section. It kind of looks like a Star Wars kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Um,
It looks like a
you
ship
know,
repair center, like your ship
yeah,
repair shop. Yeah.
exactly. So I would love to kind of have one of those. The only problem in Pyro is I feel like I might get attacked. So I don't know. I gotta try it out with the org one day and try to like do an entire factory service manual from in one of those Pyro bays and
Hmm.
see how that goes.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. I'm sure you could find groups that would be willing to run security for you while you capture everything you need for that. I will say that's one kind of fun thing is that when things like Atmo Esports races go on and stuff, or other groups do other things, they do rely on the company and work with other groups that specialize in combat and security, and they're able to do it. And people are happy to do that because it gives them a purpose as well. There's orgs out there. I could definitely put you in contact with them, whether it's your org or even some other orgs to help out. There are more than a few orgs that would jump at the chances. Provide security for something like that. Yeah, they jump right on it. So, but
Yeah, that'd be great.
going back to the whole vibe thing, I've long since, and I only know what I know about the systems. I'm definitely not a systems expert, but I feel like Castra is like my home. That's where I'll be in the future. But one thing I will say is that Pyro, for as much excitement as I had about it, I ended up not. I think Pyro is beautifully executed. I think CIG did an amazing job. Let me put that out there first. But I actually end up I don't go to Pyro too much because it's actually overly garbaged and dirty and dangerous, even more than I originally
Hmm.
thought. Now, I think that's good. I think having that style and vibe is great in the game, but I just don't find myself going there very much. And seeing what they've done with Levski and Nyx, where it's got a little bit of that grunge, it's got a little bit of that like frontier sort of vibe. It's not like completely run down into just essentially living on a trash world. So I really like what I'm seeing so far in Nyx. For I was around when Delamar and Levski were in the game in Stanton temporarily. They were Levski was my favorite location, even them. You know what I mean? Even back then, it was my
Yeah.
favorite location. Um, it was small. There wasn't a lot to it, but damn, did it have like a vibe to it, right? One of the things, for example, that I hope they do bring from old Levski into the new one, I didn't really see them here, but Levski had these like big pipes that were all over scattered around the surface, and there would be like just bursts of like flame that would come out for a moment. I didn't see
Oh
that in
wow.
the new one, but I do hope they bring that.
It
So
looks
yeah,
expanded though. From everything I saw
yeah.
on YouTube of the original Levski, it looks like they've expanded it quite a bit. And if it's as big as New Babbage or Orison, it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, it I can tell you this just from seeing the preview from CitizenCon. It looks way, way, way bigger. I mean, Levski was pretty small, and that's all it was. Yes, there was the asteroid, quote unquote, Delamar, but it was just like a little mini planetoid that didn't have anything on it. What was really cool about Delamar and Levski back when it was temporarily in Stanton was just the look that CIG gave it. It had a really interesting color grade to it, and it felt it CIG did a good job of making you feel like you were on an asteroid. This, though, not being just a little round body, this being an actual asteroid with the borehole, I think is going to feel even more so. Um, how do you feel about CIG putting Levski or putting Nyx in more of a bare bones state and adding to it as we go? What's your opinions on that?
Yeah, I was actually very happy to hear that
Hmm.
because if they don't do it that way, it would be another year to 2 years before we have Nyx in the system,
Yeah.
in the game. And I think the faster they can get the systems and the jump points in place,
Hmm.
just going system to system and then have teams building out each system. They could have one team that's just focused on Nyx, one for Castra, and they could just keep that kind of moving.
Yeah.
I think with all the propagation tech they're working on, the new planetary tech they're working on, building the systems out, could be part of a patch, right? Instead of, 4
Yeah.
dot whatever. Let's just say 5.2 is now adding another planet and all of the activities for that planet.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, one thing people will know about me is, and by the way, everyone, I do know I am talking into a mic and have a mic on my headset. The reason is because I need the side tone tonight because I have a few audio channels going on. So, yes, I know I have two mics in front of my face. But yeah, I'm personally really happy that they're putting it into the game in this early state and then building it out as they go. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, I've said this about ships as well. I understand CIG wanting to wait on ships and wait for the gameplay, but I also would rather them get stuff into the game and let us test it. What the real issue there has been CIG putting stuff into the game early and then sort of never getting back to fixing it, right? Or waiting for
Yep.
years to circle back around to something, right? Like for example, we're getting a gold standard pass on the Aurora now. Probably should have happened a long time ago, but again, priorities. I think CIG would tell you that. So I think that's always the nervous thing is that people don't want it to come in too early because they don't want CIG to have to go back and redo it 10 years later. On the flip side to that, it's like we can't test it unless it's in the game, right? And it's the same reason why I'm a little disappointed that we're not getting concept ships anymore, which I know is a very unpopular opinion. And I don't think ships should stay in concept for 8 years, but I don't mind ships that come into concept and then stay in the concept phase before, like for a year and a half before they go into production. Because again, with only straight to flyables, I feel like we're missing out on that back and forth, that feedback, right? And so that I don't love that, right? I don't love that. So we'll see how that works out. For Nyx, but I think it could benefit Nyx in a multitude of ways. For example, if they put it in in sort of a bare bones state, and then start adding content. You can surmise that the first 6 months worth of stuff they're going to put in Nix is already planned. But what they could do is just see how players play within Nix, see where they congregate, see where they like to go, see what the most popular locations are, and then they can iterate from there, and build out things that really appeal to the player base while looking at areas to exploit to surprise us, right? So, for example, if there's areas of Nix where they, through their data, see that no one really goes, they're just kind of no man's lands way out in Nix, maybe they put a mission there that takes us to a derelict space station or whatever, you know what I mean? It gives them something to sort of build to and get a little bit of that feedback from the players. So I do kind of like that. Um,
What do you, one
yeah.
thing I was thinking about Nyx is when I look at the star map, the
Hmm.
the jump point from Pyro to Nyx is extremely far uh
Yeah.
away from like the main Pyro center. Do you think that's going to be adjusted to be not quite so far, or is that their intention? Like if you want to get to Nyx, you're going to have to refuel halfway there to the jump point.
This is a great question. In 1 second, I'll answer it. Just everyone in chat. The question bot is not running. It's a little bit the fault of the bot, a little bit my fault. I forgot to talk to Piggles today. We're testing an internal bot that Art is working on. We don't totally have it working correct yet, so we're grabbing questions manually. Me and Art do need to get on the question bot and work on that more. So do be patient with us and bear with us. If you do have a question, put it in brackets. We will try to get to it. May not be able to answer every question like I sometimes do, but I may grab specific ones. Now, to go back to Dusty's thought here, it's a great question. I mean, Dusty, I'm really split on it. I personally feel CIG has got to somehow deal with the fuel and carrier problem.
Hmm.
CIG has a refueling ship in the game. It's not the cheapest ship in the world. I imagine there's more coming. They've got large scale capital carriers either in the game and or in the concept phase, one of those being worked on in the Kraken. We have the Idris. We're going to have the Liberator one day. CIG's already sold, quote unquote, the idea of fuel being a limiting factor in our transversal, right? So I personally don't think they can just ignore that. I'm okay with the long distance and ships having to rely on refuelers and or carrier ships. I I don't think it should be. I think there needs to be a line in the sand, and here, and let me expand on that a little bit. If you have a long traversal from jump point to an area in Nyx, I think a medium ship should be able to get there for sure. A medium and up, no problem. Small ships, maybe, depending on that ship's role, right? If it's more of a little explorer small ship, fine, maybe it can make it because of the distance. But if it's an extra small ship, I don't think it should be able
Light
to make,
fighters.
yeah, I don't think that it should be able to make that distance. And I think CIG is going to feel that little bit of pressure where they don't want to make a ship feel unuseful either. But at the same time, CIG is going to have to reckon with this someday, right? Because they've already sold
Hmm.
ships based off this concept. And really, and look, I own an arrow. I own an Anvil arrow. I love the arrow. But do I think an arrow should be able to cross an entire star system? If this was a game of only light fighters, then absolutely. But we're talking about a game that has fleet carriers in it. At some point,
Hmm.
that arrow has to have limitations. And and I think even now, like the arrow would have to refuel, of course. But I'm just saying that, like, as we get further along, as these distances start getting solidified, CIG is probably going to do multiple passes on fuel capacity and distance per liter, however they measure it. You know what I mean? This is
Hmm.
another reason, everyone, and I'd be interested in getting your opinion on this, Dusty. And this is a little bit aside from CitizenCon.
Yeah.
I tell people when it comes to buying ships, I tell people be careful buying a ship because of its stats. Stats are good. You need to pay attention to them, right?
Hmm.
Have fun with them. Urkel, who's a friend of Starjump's, Urkel spends a lot of time building an entire website around the idea of stats and statistics and stuff. But until this game is 1.0, and even afterwards, you probably shouldn't buy a ship because of its stats. Buy a ship because of its role, with the
Right.
understanding that its stats are going to be like this. I mean, this is an MMO game. It's
Hmm.
good. It just like character stats and class stats in an MMO like World of Warcraft are constantly changing patch to patch. That's going to happen here. As someone who creates these tech manuals, though, Dusty, and you know, probably has a keen eye on some of the specificities surrounding certain ships. What are your thoughts on that? Um, especially like when a stat changes on a ship, whether it's fuel capacity, power supplies, whatever, the shields or whatever. What is your thought on that when CIG makes those adjustments?
I mean, for me personally, it's extremely frustrating,
Yeah.
especially if they have a physicalized component, like the raft, for example, having three shields, but only two are actually there physically.
Hmm.
So, and obviously maintaining manuals over time, it's part of the job, but
Yeah.
it definitely adds to the complexity. But I want them to do it. Like, I
Yeah.
want the stats to change on ships, and as new ships come in, they have to find the role and the placement of every ship they're putting in the game. So
Right.
I'm kind of expecting that things are going to change.
Yeah. By the way, Faux Shizzle, Soul Offroader, and the Salty Sierra, thank you for those follows. Appreciate it. You are all hanging out tonight with Starjump Grim and Dusty Star joining me, talking about CitizenCon, taking a few tangents, but that's how we do it here. Yeah, no, I agree. It's frustrating. I mean, even with Starjump Fleet Viewer, me and VMXEO deal with that same problem where ships will come out or get changes. We have to go back, update the art, and or we do a lot of work to get concept ships out. So, like for example,
Hmm.
I can't even tell you all how much work went into the Crucible and Endeavor to get them on Fleet Viewer at that fidelity level.
Yeah.
But those are 1000% going to completely change, and at some point that work is going to be wasted, right? Um, it's one of those things that some of us, I guess, alternative content creators, meaning the people who make Fleet Viewer, the people that make Urkel, people like Dusty here who make the manuals, people that make content that's not just like video content. It's one of the things we struggle with. I mean, even video content creators deal with it because you might put a video out that a year later is out of date. You know what I mean? For example,
Yeah,
I
some of
did,
mine are out of date now. I get
yeah,
comments all the time. Hey, this stat changed? I'm like,
right.
yep. What
And,
am I going to do about it?
well, another interesting one is my most watched video is my Kraken shipyard video. It's got 100 something thousand views. I'm very proud of that. But while that's great and heavily researched, yes, thank you, Quinn, alternative creator. While I'm proud of that, I just had a discussion with someone tonight who was talking with the lead Kraken developer at an event, was literally talking to them, the person who's leading
Oh
the
my God.
team to build out the Kraken. And he was telling me the stuff that this person was telling him about the Kraken, concerns, issues that they think they're going to have, things that they think they're going to do. And I already know the Kraken's going to have probably some fundamental changes, right? And I'm sure they'll be for the better, but there's going to be some fundamental changes, and my video will be completely worthless. But again, that's why I think if you're buying stuff, if you're spending like $500 on a ship, right? Like for example, if you're going to buy the Perseus, if that's a ship you're interested in, I've heard a lot of people hit me up and say, Grim, do you think the ship has been upgraded to those size 8 ballistic cannons? And I'm like, maybe, but if you're interested in the ship, buy it because it's this small crew count gunship. Those things probably aren't going to change. You know what I mean? The ship was, from a design brief standpoint, was meant to be a small crew, skeleton crew, as John Crew said, and a gunship. So that won't change. How it does that, through what size guns and stuff, that's going to change. And while that can be annoying, just understand that we're in alpha, and that stuff's going to be sussed out over time. Even things like this distance from jump point to system center, right? Because ultimately,
Well,
those
going
distances
back
are a
to that
ship
real
problem.
quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, think about this though. If we all decide Nyx is going to be our new home, the first time we hop to go to Pyro to get back to Stanton, and we can't make it, we're going to
Yeah.
get stuck in Pyro.
Well, and here's the thing. It makes you wonder if there couldn't be, like, to me, CIG should look at that as a problem that does need to be solved, right?
Mm-hmm.
without necessarily just making every ship be able to do everything, right? So, for example, and I'm just up top of my head. Sure, one solve for that is putting a heavy emphasization, I can't say the word, emphasize heavily refueling ships, right? Which means, okay, we need to develop a lot more refueling ships, right? Small ones, big ones, all that kind of stuff. That's one solve. The other solve would be, okay, maybe you come up with something that is a way to get across long distances in a system without using up all your fuel. Not a jump point, but imagine a
Long
gates
range fuel tank.
that or which could be modular. That could be interesting. I didn't think about
Mm-hmm.
that. But also maybe there's something you fly up to. It's kind of like a space station. It's got a ring and it more just slingshots you. I think that was on Star Trek Voyager for those Voyager
Mm.
fans. But it sort of slingshots you from one gate to another gate. You're not going through a jump tunnel. It's not like a quantum jump, but it just sort of
Mm-hmm.
slingshots you and only burns like 20% of your fuel, and it will get you from one area to the jump gate. But the disadvantage of it is that you're taking a known route because you have to go to the slingshot, cycle up for it, and shoot. There could be people that are interdicting, people that are attacking you. So there's a lot of ways to solve a problem. Sometimes it's going to be ship based, sometimes it's going to be feature based, but it is something that they're going to have to deal with at some point, because what you can't do is suddenly say, well, the Kraken is a carrier, but we don't need carriers now. That's going to be pretty dirty. CIG is going to have to get around that, or the Starfarer, or many other things. Um,
Yep.
Let me ask you another question about Nix before we move on. And there's a lot we could talk about
Mm-hmm.
Nix, but again, just for the sake of time, um, Nix is going to be the system that. And by the way, I see a few people in chat curious about the Kraken changes. I didn't get specifics, but I did hear some things regarding the Kraken's size, concerns there, questions there, some of the arrangement of the Kraken, and a proposed timeline. I'm not saying I have the answers to them. I just heard some stuff. Regardless, I'm a Kraken owner, as you all know. I think it's going to be great when they get it done. But going back to the last question about Nyx, Dusty, we're going to get introduced to the Vanduul properly in the verse in Nyx. What do you think about that? Any thoughts about facing off against the Vanduul, or the Vanduul, causing problems while you're trying to spec out a ship and create a manual for it?
Yeah, I'm definitely a little nervous about having another, an evil alien race attacking us.
Mm-hmm.
We have Wicklow, who's super cool and friendly and very fun, but yeah, I mean, watching the Squadron 42 trailer last year,
Mm-hmm.
in the gameplay segment, I mean, the Vanduul are evil. Like,
Oh
they're
yeah,
brutal and
there's no
violent
question. There's
and
no
like,
questioning their intent there. It's pretty clear. Yeah.
yeah. And now seeing what's happening to them at ASD, maybe there's a good reason, but
Yeah.
um,
Oh,
you
that's
know,
interesting. Yeah.
when we start fighting Vanduul ships over in Nyx, are we going to see the people inside flying it? Like the Vanduul. Will we be able to? Are there going to be bunker missions where we're fighting them on foot?
Yeah.
And will they have guns and spears and those type of things?
Or will it be purely dogfighting sort of stuff?
Yeah, and obviously I'm a little worried about how those play out, right? Because we
Mm-hmm.
know how bunkers work today.
Yeah.
It,
Oh, real
it it'll
quick.
be interesting.
Soul Citizens just sent the Kraken flying overhead right on cue. As
Woohoo!
we were talking about the Kraken, Soul Citizens just rated with 170 viewers. My good friends
Wow.
over at Soul Citizen, I'm going to go ahead and give you the quadruple salute that Execute makes fun of all the time. Give you the quad salute. Thank you, everyone over at Soul Citizens. Absolutely amazing group of people. New Soul Sounds, Griffin Gaming, Citizen Joel, CC Creator, all the people. Serious Fun was probably over there. I'm not sure who all was over on the Soul Citizen side of things. Jade, Fast Car, everybody. If you don't know Soul Citizens, what are you doing? you need to know Soul Citizens. Art, maybe we can give them a shout out. But yeah, Soul Citizens does absolutely incredible content. I've always loved their videos. Great supporters. They put on the Quantum Vegas or the Quantum Vegas
Yeah.
2955 event this past summer, which I was a speaker at and had an absolutely amazing time. CIG came out. We even had Sandy Roberts come out, Sean Tracy, Galactica, Tyler. It was an absolutely epic event. I had a good time. If they ever do it again, I hope I get an invite, even if it's just a guest, not even a speaker. I would go as a guest for sure.
Well, I'm in Vegas, so I was there, and that's
Are
that's
you?
where
Were
the
you
first
there?
time I yeah, I was at
Okay.
Quantum Vegas.
Yeah.
I got sign one of your posters
Yes.
from probably from your table. I
Okay.
got a couple of posters, and everyone signed it.
You know what?
At the signing table there, and
I
then
remember meeting you now, I think.
yeah,
Yep. I have a
yeah,
really
we
bad thing where I meet people and then will like a month later say, God, I hope we get to meet sometimes. It's not that I forgot. It's just was there was a lot of people there, wasn't there?
yeah,
It
it
was
was
like a bit
really fun.
overwhelming. Yeah, it was a bit
That was
overwhelming.
my first ever Star Citizen event.
Oh, nice. Well,
So
you
yeah,
really went to a well put together Star Citizen event. Then let me put it that way. And for those Soul Citizens in the house tonight that put that together, again, huge shout out to Griff and Fast Cart and Series Fun and everyone, CC Creator. I mean, it was one of the best events I've ever been to. It was a lot of fun. It was just everyone had a good time. I did not hear one bad thing. Yeah, it was great. So
well, the night before they had a Bar Citizen event there.
yeah,
Were you at the Bar Citizen?
I
Yeah,
did, and
that's
I tried to circulate, but as I was walking to the Bar Citizen, I was walking in the building, and I was walking, and I ran into someone who said, "Hey, are you Starjump Graham?" I said, "Yep," and we got to talking, and then I spent 20 minutes talking to that person, and then I
oh my
went
gosh.
in, and then I just ran into a couple people that I didn't know. They just reached out and said, "Hey, are you so and so?" And I was like, "Yeah, are you so and so?" And then boom, a friendship is made, and so while I was at the Bar Citizen, I probably only talked to about 4 people. It's just all my time was sort of stuck with those 4 people. I did get to talk to Sean Tracy at the Bar Citizen, though. Talked to him for a while,
Okay.
which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I met Red Monster, and then him and I ended up collabing on a prospector video on a Factory
Oh,
Serves Me, so that
nice.
was fun. I met Paul Shelley, astro
Mhm.
historian, a bunch of other folks.
Yeah,
It was a lot of fun though.
it was a
And
great
then
turnout.
so it was at the Bar Citizen event outside after they were giving away prizes
Yeah.
and giving away ships and everything like that. And so for the actual Quantum Vegas event, I only bought one ticket for myself.
Mhm.
And my wife came with me to the Bar Citizen, and she ended up winning a free ticket out there that night. So if ever anyone was out there that night and you saw
Oh,
someone go
wow.
up and win the free ticket, that was
I
my
remember
wife.
that.
So then she ended up coming to Quantum Vegas with me the next day.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. My wife was mad that I didn't take her. I would have taken her.
Yeah, Vegas,
I
come on.
I thought she was going to be bored out of her mind if I did take her. But she came
Probably.
and so yeah, thank you. Oh, we just
Good.
got another raid. We got raided by Old
Oh my
Man
gosh.
Observer, just raided with a party of 59. All right, maybe
Oh
we
my
can give a
gosh.
shout out to Old Man Observer. Old Man Observer, salute to you. I'm giving you the double salute. Thank you for bringing your community over. I really appreciate that. Thank you and Soul Citizens for raids tonight and trusting me and Dusty with your community. We promise to be very well behaved. We're talking about CitizenCon tonight. Old Man Observer, Soul Citizens. I hope you both had great streams tonight. Again, everyone, give them a follow. Check them out. Both of them do great content, great streaming. Make sure you do that. Again, thank you for trusting us with your communities. Real quick, I'm just going to take an off the cuff question here. Soul Off Rotor says, "Do we have a Star Jump for mobile yet?" We don't. I don't know
Hmm.
if Starjump Starlet is watching, but if Starjump Starlet is watching, I'll just say people are requesting the mobile version Starlet. We may need to get on that. um, but anyway, we're going to continue on. Yeah, I hear your thoughts about the Vandal. Again, thank you for those raids. Both of you really, really appreciate it. Thanks for supporting the channel. Real quick, everyone, before we go continue talking about the Vandal, I did want to do one more thing real quick here for my good buddy. My good buddy Ender. If you know Starjump Ender, he's done a lot of stuff for charity and is sort of the person that leads the charity endeavors here at Starjump. Last year we raised we hit the $50,000 mark, something like that, for St. Jude. We raised a shit ton of money. It was a lot of fun. And again, that all goes back to Starjump Ender and the efforts he's made to push charity endeavors at Starjump and make that a core, pillar of what we are. Starjump Ender's in his own time of need right now. He's going through some family stuff, some personal family stuff that is very challenging. He lost his job recently and is now selling his house under those conditions, and things are very, very tough. If you want to help the boy out, again, he's done so much good for so many people. If you want to help him out, go to that GoFundMe, support him. Don't do it if you're not in a position to do it, but if you want to do it, I know he would appreciate it. He's done a lot of good for a lot of people and has put a lot of effort into it. So thank you very much. Let's get back to the Vandal. What a great segue. Charity to Vandal. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Dusty. I'm expecting this to be mostly dogfighting incursions by the Vandal and nothing FPS related. I think it'll just come down to if the story leads us to a situation like that. It would have to be
Hmm.
Vandal invading a planetary surface in Nyx of some type of bunker or installation. One thing I would say though is we have seen some AI tech go into drop ships coming in, dropping off AI NPCs. So it's not that that couldn't be done for the Vandal. It could be one of those things where CIG wants to sort of save the Vandal FPS stuff for Squadron and then introduce it afterwards. But we've seen time and time again as we getting closer to Squadron, CIG started letting some of those things out the bag a little earlier. So yeah, it'll remain to be seen. I think it could be really interesting um if Nyx is sort of like a nice middle ground system between Stanton, between Pyro, excuse me, and a lot of the PvE combat that you encounter could have those Vandal sort of ramifications that could really
Hmm.
separate it from um that could really separate it from Pyro, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And that could be really really crazy. And I'd like to see that, I think. I haven't thought much about the Vandal in Star Citizen proper, but I think it could really sort of help define Nyx and separate it from Pyro, give it a completely different vibe. So, um,
Agree.
stand by, everyone. Okay. That being said, um, no worries, Art. I think Art had to step away, my show producer, but that's okay. We will stumble through this ourselves. So let's continue on. I'm going to swing back to my list here. We're going to move off of Nyx. Obviously, there's a lot more we could talk about, everybody, with Nyx. I guess the last thing I'll say about Nyx is it is going to be dropping soon. Spectre EH, thank you for that subscription. Salute to you, buddy. Thank you for that support. But Nyx is coming soon. It's coming at the end of this month or beginning of the next month. I forget. But it's coming very, very soon in the next patch. I think 4.3.4, I think is what they're calling it, or 4.4. Can't remember what they're calling it.
4.4, I think. I thought it
4.4.
was
Okay.
4.4. Yeah.
Okay. 4.4. So they said November. That's really exciting. Jade, Star Watcher, Jade, nice to see you. Jade says, I can't wait to get back home to Levski. I think there's a lot of people that have that feeling, Jade. So yeah, coming very soon. Again, coming in a little bit bare bones, but I'm okay with that. Sounds like Dusty's okay with that. I like that CIG's not holding it back. They're going to go ahead and get it in game, start populating it. I think that's the right thing to do, and the best way to
Hmm.
test this system. So, um, all right, let's continue on to the next topic of CitizenCon that I want to talk about, and that is Planet Tech V5, otherwise known as Genesis. Okay. Um, from everything I've heard from people, about their impressions of, hey, C Daddy CIG's in chat. C Daddy, I hope you're doing well. I hope things at CIG are well, and I hope CIG had a lot of fun with the CitizenCon digital presentation, and everyone felt good about it. I've heard, I had a great time watching it, and I was trying to watch it while my daughter's birthday party was going on, which I do not recommend anyone. I had one hands-free earplug in as I'm trying to like light candles and stuff. So I would like set my phone down and watch the thing. See, Daddy, I'm gonna have to put a request into CIG. I'm going to need you to check with me first moving forward so that we can make sure that CitizenCon and Invictus and IAE do not fall whenever I have a family vacation or a birthday party, which is how it always happens. Okay. So give me a buzz. We'll work it out. We'll get that schedule snafu worked out.
Streamer privilege.
Yeah, streamer
Nothing.
Okay. Well, we're watching a little bit of Planet Tech V5 here. This first and foremost, C Daddy says I was watching while on a go live call to rewatch it afterwards. Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yep.
So Planet Tech V5 or Genesis, I guess is what they're calling it, which is an app name because it really is more than just a step up. This seems like a whole new world here, and pun intended. Is from everyone I talked to, this was the standout thing, like the thing that got the most positive reaction. Nix, what there was excitement around Nix for sure, but I think Nix was a little bit more of a known quantity. We kind of know what Nix is. I think it's going to surprise us, but we kind of know what it is. And Nix is going to have Planet Tech or Genesis in it, but I think Genesis, just from a core tech standpoint, had the most positive reaction. We're seeing some of that here. I have thoughts and opinions on it, but Dusty, I'm going to hand it over to you first, buddy. What did you think of the Genesis presentation and the quality bar that planets are now going to move up to? And so, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I'm thinking of what CPU I need to get next so that I can run it. Obviously it looks really
Yep.
good. And it, the demo of course is always so beautiful.
Yep.
The game is beautiful now.
Mm-hmm.
How many screenshots do we all take while we're playing? And
Yep.
we all have those moments where we're just like, wow, you just want to take a screenshot because it looks so good.
Yep.
This just takes that to another level. And something I heard during CitizenCon, which I thought was actually really good as someone who's really into art and creating art, um, is they mentioned the visuals of Star Citizen and,
Mm-hmm.
and how beautiful they want it to look.
Yep.
And that is what's driving the technology, right? It's not the technology allowing the art,
Mm-hmm.
it's the other way around, right? They're designing it the way they want it to look. And now they got to figure out technically how to make it happen and still be performant and all those things. And I
Yeah.
thought that was really interesting. I hadn't heard that before
Yeah.
from CIG, and I thought that was really good from my perspective.
Yeah. And I would have to hope that one of the core tenets behind um, Genesis, not that they talk much about this, but I would have to think that one of the core tenets is some level of performance optimization. There's probably some metric they have internally that they're wanting to hit from here, some sort of budgets for it. And I would hope that CIG is keeping that, you know, front of mind. PC Gamer Radio on YouTube chat just said Genesis is the key for base building, in my opinion. PC Gamer, the good thing is I don't think that's your opinion at all, man. I think that Genesis is the core of base building because one of the things base building is going to need are resources. One of the main reasons we build bases, and Genesis is what brings that on. CIG has all but said that crafting, and remember, base building is really just a form of crafting. Let's be real clear here. It's just a different type of crafting. But but base building is going to be a major reason why we all play this game. Originally, base building was going to be you're building your home, right? That doesn't appeal to everyone, right? Some people just want to live on the ship. But that's not what base building is. As you've seen from last year's CitizenCon presentation, base building is intended to plug into every single gameplay loop. Okay, there's going to be medical buildings, there's going to be salvage buildings, mining refineries, all that kind of stuff, places to sell your wares. Any and every gameplay loop is going to have associated buildings along with it. So base building is actually the end game extension of your game, of your chosen gameplay loop. Okay, something Dusty wants to do is sort of sell ships and repair ships and be that sort of, that sort of garage center, and he's going to be able to do that through the building system, right? So in many ways,
Yeah.
base building is an extension of the gameplay loops, taking them further, right? Thank
Well,
you, Soul
also,
Citizens. I really appreciate
crafting
that.
components
Yeah.
is the other piece of this, right?
Hmm.
Is crafting better components than you can get in the shop, better that come with stock ships.
Hmm.
I think that'll be part of, I think our org gameplay will be creating those components and then, selling those and upgrading ships with those.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's the first thing I thought of, by the way, when actually let me go full screen of this. That's the first thing I thought of, by the way, when I saw the Genesis stuff. Well, the first thing I thought was, whoa, this actually does look different than what we currently have in game. That was the first thing that hit me. There's and it's not just the terrain detail and all that stuff. It's lighting. It's a lot of stuff going on here. It looks incredible.
Yeah, the lighting was a massive improvement, but that's probably global illumination and some of the new stuff that they've been trying to get in the game for a while now.
Yeah. Um, so that's the first thing that hit me. Um, one second. So the next thing that hit me though, in this is probably the primary thing, is that when I saw this, I immediately went to base building. I said, wow, these are the vistas that we're going to be scanning and scouring to figure out where to build our bases, right? And that immediately excited me because I was like, oh, okay, look how high the mountains go here. Look at the vistas they're creating and all that kind of stuff. And all I could do was start to picture future bases there. And that really, really got me excited. Let me go back to my notes here real quick. Bear with me. Um, again, there's a lot of technical stuff that they talked about here. They did talk about performance enhancements. Again, something I just mentioned. One of the things they talked about was grass rendering has been transitioned from CPU to GPU processing to optimize performance in Genesis, which is really great. I'm sure there's a host of other things coming from a performance standpoint that are going to be that are going to make Genesis awesome. It's not to say it's going to run on your old 5-year-old system. I don't know, but I don't know what the new metrics will be. But again, hopefully CIG is thinking about that optimization stuff, those performance enhancements. But one of the things that really stuck out to people too was just the biomes that they showed off, right? Swamp biomes, which we did see a little bit of a preview back at last year's CitizenCon, but you can extrapolate that to extreme biomes, lava-based worlds, ocean worlds, whatever the case may be, or ocean worlds that are just dotted with little islands. You can extrapolate this to a lot of different biomes, truly alien worlds, right? That have, landforms and land structures and stuff that we've never seen before in Stanton and Pyro. So they could get pretty wild with it. So I think Genesis gives them the place to start, or sorry, the tools to start doing that. And it's just really exciting. I mean, you can look at this right here. What we're seeing here is something we don't really see in any planet now. We got like soft versions of this, but seeing
Yeah, the
where they're
cliff.
going with this, put Star Citizen aside, if you saw some of the terrain stuff, the landscape stuff they're doing, and applied it to any game, whether it was Red Dead or any other game out there, these would grab your attention and there would be gaming articles written about this. And it's one of the main things I hope when we get to Star Citizen 1.0, I'm hoping that a lot of the systems we're seeing, whether it's Genesis, dynamic server meshing, all this stuff, we can go on and on, are so advanced and so impressive that it's hard for the gaming press to say anything but positive stuff about this game. Not to say you shouldn't criticize things that need to be criticized, but it's stuff like this that remind me that CIG is really pushing the envelope, right? And it's not to
Mhm.
say every decision made is perfect, but when these citizen cons remind you of the boundaries that CIG is trying to push beyond. And I think that is a reminder sometimes of why we back the game, right? Why some of us have been backing for a long time. If you go back, what was it, a CitizenCon or two, when they showed the Star Engine demo, that was a big
Hmm.
wake up call for me, right? Where I watched it and go, oh man, I've thought about all these things, but I haven't thought about them as an engine, as a whole system, right? And
Hmm.
it just it's helpful to do that sometime because this game has been long in development. There's a lot of little things people will nitpick on, right? There's things people have nitpicked on with the actual CitizenCon Direct presentation, but when you do step back, look at what CIG is trying to accomplish. It is it is really impressive. Um, yeah, go ahead.
I think I fall into the camp. I think there's a few different camps of the player base in Star Citizen, but I for me personally, I'm in the camp of I don't really ever want them to finish the game, if
Yep.
that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
I will keep supporting them and I will keep doing what I need to do, for my enjoyment of the game and the gameplay that I like. But
Yep.
I don't want them to like say, "Oh, the game's done. Bye guys.
Right.
Enjoy it."
Yeah.
And just go into maintenance mode.
Mhm.
Like I want them to keep adding systems and keep adding new features and new things and keeping it up to date. And as long as there's people like us that want to play the game, my hope is that they keep upgrading it.
Yeah. Um, I agree. By the way, chat, if you do have a question, I don't have my producer tonight, and we're trying to get through the CitizenCon topics. So if you do have a question, feel free to put it in at the end of the show, time permitting. I'm going to circle back and start grabbing as many questions as I can, and we'll field them. So feel free to put them in chat if you want. I just may not directly answer them right away. We're going to circle back to them, okay? Just so we can get through all the topics. Um, I think Genesis 2, another thing I try to think about is, um, and this is probably the one thing that stood out to me most about Genesis, and it's kind of a simple thing. It's probably the least quote unquote impressive thing to most people, but it's the, what was it? What do they call it? Let me look and see if I wrote it down. I maybe didn't write it down, but it's the technology they're creating where the textures that you see from orbit are accurate to the textures planet side, like when you get down to surface level, because that constantly
Hmm.
happens to me now, where I'll be in orbit and I'll see like a what looks to be like a forested area of microtech, and I'll fly down there and it's just snow, more snow, more snow, more snow. So honestly, I that's going to want to be the biggest things I love about Genesis is that from orbit we're going to be able to see things that interest us on the surface of a planet and fly directly to that area. And this may not, I get that there's going to be people that go, that's not exploration. But in some ways, that really does add to exploration gameplay where there's that direct visual connection where we see something interesting on the surface of a planet, we can fly right down to it. You know what I mean? There is a bit of an exploration thing there. Um, Again, you couldn't do that. Yeah, you couldn't do that with the current system, which is where those textures are, the near and far textures are, not synced. You're not seeing things
Yeah, I
accurately. So,
think that plays into mining a lot too. I
mhm,
know when I'm doing the mining gameplay loop and I see it, I try to imagine where I'm going to find the best rocks, right?
mhm,
Where the mountains kind of come off and meet a different area, and things
right.
like that. So, looking at when they were showing the golem mining the rocks there in the presentation, it seems like mining and discovering mining areas should be easier with the new planet tech.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I really do. Um, bring up my windows here, and sorry, I am juggling a little bit. Again, before we continue on, again, everyone, chat. Just another. Hey, Dusty, can you DM me your YouTube channel URL again in the Discord? I want to make sure I post that.
Yeah.
With Art stepping away, he was going to do that for me, but I just want to make sure we're popping that in there. Um, we have some raiders that have joined us since obviously the start of the show, and I wanted to reintroduce my guest tonight to all the raiders that have come in from the other streams. As you all know, Starjump, we focus a lot on spaceships. We have Starjump Fleet Viewer, and we talk about spaceships a lot. Again, those of you that have not checked out Starjump Fleet Viewer, make sure you do that. Putting the link down in chat. We also have Hanger.link, which is an associated tool. Make sure you go check out Fleet Viewer. But we're big on ships here. We love spaceships. They're a lot of fun to talk about. We love talking about the gameplay loops that plug in or that are accessed by those spaceships. So anytime I find a new content creator out there that does really cool, special, interesting stuff in and around spaceships, I take notice. Found Dusty's channel. I think I got hit with it like from like a YouTube short or just populated my YouTube channel. I don't know where I got it, but I saw it. I loved your content. You do some really, really great
Thank you.
stuff. I want to make sure I highlight you. Everyone in chat, here is Dusty's link. Make sure you go there. Check out his channel. He does some absolutely crazy, awesome YouTube videos surrounding spaceships. So you will want to check that out. And he's just very knowledgeable about ships, obviously. So go check him out. That being said, let's continue on here. So Genesis, really cool. I think we're all excited about it. Thank you for those follows, by the way, Kira, Shinu, and Sargareth. Appreciate that. As much as I loved here, I would have again, we're not always white knighting. Here's a little bit of a criticism about this specific panel. One thing I would have loved to see a little bit with this panel is some more demonstrations from CIG, like they did last year, showing how weather will play into Genesis. One of the coolest things this past year was that event where you're doing the, where you're doing the, I forget which one it was called. I can't believe it's blanking on me, but where there's a storm and the lightning hits your ship and knock your ship out and all that kind of stuff. The weather stuff is awesome. They brought snowfall into Microtech. I would have loved to see some whatever they've been doing with weather. Maybe they haven't been doing much with it, but weather combined with Genesis, and maybe they're part of the same system, is amazing. I would have loved to have seen, like, for example, what we're seeing right now. I would have loved to have seen this, but then a transition and show what like a thunderstorm looks like there, or adverse weather conditions. I think that would be really, really cool. Weather's just a big thing I love in games in general. So that was the only thing missing from Genesis. Everything looked really awesome. All the environments definitely told a story to me. So excited to see more. I mean, we're supposed to get, I think it's Nix 1 is using Genesis. If you go back to one of the PU monthly reports, by the way, a few months back, there was a mention of a planet getting Genesis work done to it. They didn't say it was a Nix planet. We all kind of assumed it was Nix, but they just mentioned that a planet was getting the first iteration of Genesis work. Turns out it is Nix 1. I personally hope that CIG on a regular basis tackles the other planets. C Daddy says it's star weather. Star weather. That would be the perfect name for it. And C Daddy may not be joking. That may be the actual name, everybody. I hope it is, because star weather is perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my only criticism of this particular panel. I would have loved to see the weather stuff. I think that would have been really cool. Anything you want to say about Genesis before we move on to the next topic, Dusty?
Yeah, the only thing that was missing from the presentation for me was seeing an RSI Scorpius in the swamp.
Yep. Missed
Crashed
opportunity.
in the water right there. That would have really made it for me. But
yeah, a bit of a missed opportunity for sure. Okay, let's talk about the next thing, and that is it is an event that's going to be going on within Levski, and it's an event, and there's also just further gameplay features. It looks like CIG is going to be focusing a bit on mining, and some further mining gameplay coming into the verse, as well as some. I mean, we've seen some salvage changes come in even recently, so I think looks like salvage and mining are going to be starting to get some more attention. With mining, though, they brought up a new event called it's essentially a rock cracker event, right? Or series of missions. I'm not sure if it's an actual event or missions, but it's essentially where these
it's
giant
a sandbox gameplay experience.
There we go. Thank you very much, Dusty. It is these large stations, mining stations or whatever, where they've captured large asteroids. They're shooting shooting the lasers at them from these big platforms, trying to break the rock. You have to go in, get those lasers running again. Once the lasers are, they bore a hole essentially into the rock, crack it to where you can gain access. You're going to be able to fly your ships into that, get out, do the mining, find the valuables in there. It's got some parallels towards sort of the Hathor event that happened in Stanton, but obviously done in a very different way. Um, Obviously industrial focused. Essentially a very mining focused event. I was really excited about this. My thoughts on this though were, this is the type of industrial gameplay they do need to get into Star Citizen. I don't mind us having to step out of the comfort, um, the place of comfort that is mining to get to the good stuff. So this event is going to require a little bit more of an effort from us in several ways. My only concern with this one is that there is a phase of this event that does have you sort of clearing hostiles from the station. Um,
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of back and forth from people on this. A lot of people not happy with that. A lot of people saying, "Oh, they're putting, they're right away they're putting, combat into an industrial event." I can see the argument. Totally get the argument. I'm probably 80% in agreement with that. Um, I guess for me, when it comes to something like that, where there's a very industrial focused event and the CIG puts in this one factor that you may have to go in and clear. I personally wish it was more of a possibly clear hostiles instead of a phase that you're going to have to do, right? And what I mean by that is, let's say there's a time or a phase of the mission where you do have to go in, you have to go in on foot into the facility, flip some switches, turn some buttons on, all that kind of good stuff. And maybe 70% of the time, you're not going to really encounter anything concerning, right? But maybe there's 20% of the time that you would, right? So that's a surprise. You maybe want to pack a sidearm. I think the issue when it's always a guaranteed combat scenario is that players start outfitting themselves for combat when the goal is to mine. You know what I mean? And even if
Yeah.
it just creates like a weird mix of gameplay loops that don't always intersect. So I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on that, Dusty, where sort of a little bit of FPS salt has to sort of be sprinkled on some of these industrial events or commercial cargo events. What's your thinking on that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think of everything in Star Citizen as a group event. Even though I'm a solo player, when it comes to events, I think events are better with more people. So if you have a an org that you play with, or um, you can still be the guy who's in the mole waiting to mine all the resources, and having your ship all set up to do that, while the other crew is clearing to turn everything on for you, right?
Yeah,
Like I just don't see it as like this is a solo player event. It doesn't make sense as a solo event to me.
yeah,
I know people want to do that, and maybe they should be able to. I think this leads into the whole instancing discussion,
hmm,
right? Like the idea that you and your crew could take an instance of that event and not have to deal with other players, but just deal with the PvE scenarios.
yeah.
Um, so as far as like Rock Cracker being a solo event for someone who just wants to mine, I don't think that's the design of the mission itself.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I think the sort of the solo mining gameplay is what you can do now. You can go out and mine, you can do
Hmm.
the thing you need to do on that solo level. There has been missions even in Stanton, part of the events that we just went through, where there's a little bit of that solo mining focus. But I think what CIG has been focusing on in some respects are events like this that bring together a couple things: multiple types of ships, multiple types of players. And I think one way to do this is to, because I've been talking with Art a lot. Art's in a big org. They do a lot of combat focused sorties and fleet battles and stuff like that. And these type of events, I think, are good in one way, in that they are kind of pushing us to sort of look to our friends, look to the people we know out there, look to other orgs for help and assistance, grouping up, getting things done outside of just that solo bubble. That's hard for some people. It's easier for others, and I think that um, players are just going to react differently to it. You know what I mean? It's weird for me because Starjump has a pretty big community, within our Discord, and we've made a lot of friends, people that are, have huge orgs, people that have small orgs. So it's weird for me because I know if I want to do an event, I could probably just jump in our Discord, say, hey, does anyone want to do XYZ? And I'm either going to get invited to something or I'm going to get, help. People are going to come to help me. For the solo player that's just the person trying to make their way through the verse by themselves, I can see that being a challenge. And I do think CIG's been making a good effort of making multiple entry points into some of these gameplay events and these sandbox events.
Right.
They're giving solo opportunities, they're giving multi-crew opportunities, they're giving collaborative opportunities. It's a challenge. And one thing that they've been doing all this past year, and I think that will continue through next year, is they're trying out all these type of events. And this is good because what this is right now we test things in game, right? CIG does their own internal testing, but these events is how we're testing the future missions for Star Citizen 1.0. Remember how they're going to put that main story in? Maybe they're going to put all those gameplay loops in, all that stuff. This is how we get there. We've got to test this stuff, right? Stand by, everyone. Rage One, my good buddy Rage One, just gave out 5 community subs. Rage One, salute to you, buddy. Giving you the double salute on that one. Well deserved. Thank you very much, Rage One. I appreciate that. Rage One's always out to support the streams, so really appreciate you, buddy. Thank you very much. Everyone, enjoy those subs. Real quick, since we paused a second, I do want to remind everyone we have a giveaway for a Star Citizen. Let me actually almost switch over for a Star Citizen digital goodies pack. All you got to do is go to this Gleam link that I just posted down in the chat. You can enter; it's for free. We're going to give that away at the end of tonight's stream. Really cool goodie pack. It's got a Vandal squishy, or stuffy, or whatever you want to call it. Or plushie. My daughter calls them stuffies, so that's what I call them. They're Vandal plushies. So there you go. Really cool. Get in on that if you are interested. So yeah, I mean, I think all these events, from the whole regen crisis stuff all the way to fight for Pyro, fight for Stanton, Xeno threat, all that stuff, it's good that we get in there and test it, voice what you like, voice what you don't like. And CIG is going to take that, and that's going to inform the future missions that we do in the verse. It's going to inform that new player experience main story. It's going to inform the missions that come out of the guilds. Remember all those guilds we're supposed to have? I think there's 6 of them. They're going to have their own series of missions and ways to earn rep and money with them. And the more we play these missions, whether you like the direction CIG's going or you don't like the direction CIG's going with them, get in there, test them, see what you don't like, so that when you do put out a complaint about them, whether it's on the issue council or Spectrum or wherever it goes, that you can give it some nuance, right? And say what you don't like about it, what could be made better, because that's what is the most valuable for the developers working on these missions. They're trying to appease a lot of different types of players: PvPers, PvEers, RPers, people that like industrial missions, cargo missions, medical missions, combat missions. I mean, it goes on and on. There's people that like the FPS stuff. I've actually talked to people who prefer to be boots on ground. There's people that like to fly ships, people that want to do engineering. I mean, I could probably go on for an hour about the different players that are play this game. It is a very, very hard job to try to please them all. I say this about the flight model all the time, for example, is another gameplay feature that is just going to be so impossible to please everybody, right? So give CIG a little patience on that, everyone, and get in there and test the game.
So thinking
Yeah,
about like what we were just talking about with the solo player in mind, me as a solo player, I come from a background of World of Warcraft. I played a lot of World of Warcraft
same.
over the past years. Um, the fact that we don't have good social tools in the game, simple things like looking for group, especially with instancing coming. Like for
Mhm.
me, as a solo player going into Hathor, right? It'd be great if I could jump into a raid group where we're all working together in an instance so that I can experience that, because I'll never go there by myself.
Right. Yeah.
I just avoid it. I just don't even bother.
Yeah. No, I can. I that makes a lot of sense. let's continue on here. We talked a little bit about the Rock Breaker event. Again, it shows that they're making content for Nyx, right? So
Yep.
and that's probably going to come pretty soon after. So once Nyx comes out, looks like there's going to be things to do, right? And we're going to get more into that as we go. So we've talked about Levski and Nyx. We've talked about Genesis. We've talked about Rockcracker. Let's get into the next thing. And this is the one portion of the CitizenCon Direct that I was the most distracted by real life stuff happening. So Danger Hobo, thank you for that follow. Drifter, thank you for the follow. This is the one part I was most distracted by real life stuff, so I kind of only caught parts of it, and that is crafting systems coming. There's going to be an upcoming release of that. It's going to be an initial release that comes. I think it's targeting the technical preview channel by the end of
Right.
2025. It's going to be initially focusing on FPS weapons, armor, and related equipment. So I would think I would see things like chem lights and other little things probably falling in there. Um, the crafting is going to require blueprints and materials. So this is really going to be our first introduction to blueprints, right? Pretty cool. I think that's a pretty big deal in and of itself. We're going to be dealing with things like material quality, right? We're going to be working with materials that allow us to craft things that are going to be better and surpass store purchased equivalents of those items, right? So if you create an
Hmm.
FS9, the crafted version is going to be better than the version you're buying from an in-game store, right? And I would think by default better than ones that come in physical purchases you make, like the ones on the actual pledge store that conclude weapons and stuff. I would assume the crafted ones are going to be a little bit better. I think CIG said that in the past.
Do you
Um,
think crafting is going to work like No Man's Sky crafting, where you drop resources into a bucket, and hit a button, and wait for it to churn out something?
as much as people may hate that I'm saying this, I think yes, that's what it's going to be.
Mm.
However, I will say this. I could see that being the initial implementation. However, I do think CIG is probably, and I'm speculating wildly here, I haven't heard anything, but I do think CIG is heading in a direction where you put the things in the bucket and then you can kind of shake the bucket a certain way and add a few drops of this and that extra that help point the direction of what's going to come out a little better, right? We know material quality
Mhm.
comes into that, right? But I think CIG is going to maybe allow us to do a little bit of tinkering eventually, not in the first release, by the way, but a little bit of tinkering with that processing side of things. And that tinkering may be just a byproduct of research, the science research gameplay loop that's coming.
Mhm.
That may be a part of that. I'm not really sure. But right now, crafting does seem a little bit linear where you put in materials based off their quality, you get out the expected thing. I do think and
Mhm.
there's going to be a future though where you can put materials in of different quality, but then also add in a wild card object and it creates something a little different, right? Um,
Mm.
so for example,
Little RNG element.
let me give you an example of that. I think that there is going to be a crafting side of medical gameplay, right? And there will be crafters that specifically focus on this. And I've talked to a lot of medical focused players, and they really get excited about this. But imagine you craft um, a med pen, right? But imagine if that
Okay.
med pen can sort of be spiked with something, this wild
Mhm.
card ingredient. You spike that med pen so that when a player pops that med pen, it doesn't just bring them back to 100% health, it brings them back to 130% health, gives them essentially a buff, right?
Mhm.
It gives them that buff, that 30% extra, that's the buff. Maybe that only lasts 30 minutes, right? It's like a
Okay.
30-minute time limited buff. And then after that time limit ends, you drop back down to 100%. That kind of thing could be good
Mhm.
for people about to go into a heavy combat zone or whatever. But again, there's something kind of interesting there where you're creating a med pen, it's kind of a known quantity thing, and that med pen could have some quality factors to it. But then you can also create wildcard versions. Maybe one gives you a health bonus, maybe one gives you a speed bonus where you can move faster. I don't know if CIG wants to get that gamey with it, but they could,
Mm-hmm.
right? You could do, I see someone in chat just mentioned artificial limbs, right? We haven't even talked about cybernetics. Cybernetics is another thing that's going to probably be crafted. I think that's going to be one of the things you
Mm-hmm.
can craft. And then it's like, well, maybe you craft cybernetic limbs in interesting ways, right? By the way, I think Execute from Runners was in chat. I missed that, but I was just scrolling through the chat and saw you say hello there, Execute. I hope you're well, buddy. Nice to see you. Everyone, if you haven't checked out the Runners, what are you doing? They make absolutely amazing content, and Execute was very nice to have me on his CitizenCon day of show. I was probably very annoying to him though, because I had to like come and go a lot because of real life stuff. So Execute, I hope you're well, buddy. I hope you had a good CitizenCon. And sorry I missed your earlier hello. I was looking at another screen. I'm looking at this monitor. I have 3 monitors in front of me, everybody. I was looking over at monitor 3. Your message was over on monitor 2. Sorry about that. So I think the biggest negative I heard about crafting, and this one to me is the one that really people should not be concerned about. I did see a number of people complain about this, and I was just like, this is like the least of your worries right now. Is people were like, I don't like that the initial crafting implementation is combat stuff, FPS weapons and armor. It's
Mm-hmm.
CIG has already showed us the future of crafting. Crafting is everything. You're going to be able to craft literally everything in the game, all the way to ships, right? So I don't think we need to worry about the future. Crafting's coming. I think it's just that they have a lot of guns in game. They have a lot of armors in game. They can implement those blueprints super easy right now without having to build a whole bunch of new content around a whole bunch of blueprints that don't exist. So, and this is specifically related to the technical preview channel. So everyone keep that in mind. Everyone keep that in mind.
Are we still gonna have to put everything down the freight elevator like Wicklow? Because I know they mentioned Wicklow is like a test bed for crafting for them in a way. Do you think we're gonna
Hmm.
put the items in the machine itself? Because I saw the machine, but it was sitting on a freight elevator in the CitizenCon
I
video.
I hope if you have and by the way, Jade Star Watcher says that she hopes she can craft clothes that aren't for sale anywhere. I hope you can do that and affect the
Yeah, that'd be
dyes of
awesome.
them. So you can craft something that is in a store, but you can
Hmm.
change the colors to where you're getting something different from a store version. Um, but going back to your thing, Dusty, I don't know how they're going to do it, but one of the things they talked about the crafting machines is obviously they can be on ships, they can be in your hangar, they could be in a building. We don't know if they can just be placed out in like open ground, but here's where I'm going with this.
Yeah, how do you power them? That's what I was wondering
Right.
too. Like, if you take it with you in your ship, what powers the crafting machine?
I would assume it's pulling from a power supply. I would assume anything placed in your hangar is powered by power supplies in the hangar itself. I don't know, but here's where I'm going with that. Um, Rough Gaming says a grid is possibly it needs a grid. Okay. So
Okay,
here's what I'm
like
thinking.
a cargo grid is essentially a powered system, is
Right.
what you
Maybe
mean,
that's
right?
how they're doing it here. And if that's the case, what I would say is if the crafting machine is in your ship, I would hope it can pull from your cargo grid. That would be kind of cool. I know that's a little gamey. You're not physically loading it into the machine, but at some point, Star Citizen needs to be a game that releases while I'm still alive. So, some gaminess is okay for the sake of getting it done, everybody. Inforunner Execute says, think of it of the machine as a microwave. You put the ingredients in and then cook. Out comes a succulent meal. Thank you for that description. Um, delicious succulent Chinese meal. The So I would hope it can pull from the grid. Same thing as if it's in your hangar. If you put the crafting machine in there, I would hope it can pull directly from your hangar's cargo warehouse. I would assume that's how it works on the Pioneer. When you craft something, it's pulling it from your 1,000 SCU of cargo capacity. If you physically
Mm,
have to take little things in a box, walk over to the crafting machine, load them, do all that, I just am concerned that's too much friction, right? It's too much game friction where there's these like little ancillary steps that are kind of not important, right? The putting shit in a
Mhm.
box, putting the box in the crafting machine, it's not important, right? I think maybe you could, maybe that's an option to do that, especially if you have it.
Look how we do cargo.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's a little tedious, right?
It is tedious, and I think that's sort of the thinking there is it too tedious, right? Where and that's the balance is when is too much, when is friction too much friction, you know? And I think we're still figuring that out. That's why, again,
Mhm.
going back to these gameplay missions, that's why I thought Resource Drive was so great. I wasn't a perfect event, but man, did it show where cargo needs to be improved. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for
Man, did
sure.
it highlight that tractor beams needed some work. And what did CIG just do in the most recent build? They fixed some of the handheld tractor beams. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're a little faster, right? But
Yeah.
you know what? One thing I really miss, I miss taking my C2, going out to Shubin Mining 22, filling it up,
Yeah.
going back to Microtech, selling it,
Yeah.
making like 400K in a
Yeah.
trip.
Yeah.
You
100%.
know,
I
now
mean,
now I would never do that because of the amount of manual labor I would have to do to load it up.
sure. Yeah. And again, it just kind of goes back to, by all of us playing this, CIG is hopefully taking the data by just watching us play and how we play and factoring that in. I mean, I'll go back to the Pioneer here because I just mentioned it. The Pioneer went through its reconcepting. And one of the coolest things I think CIG did, and I tip my hat to them for this. So, John, Ben, if you ever see this, great job on this. The fact that they added the resource extractors to the landing gears of the Pioneer is such a huge quality of life boost to that ship. And I think it's because internally they were thinking through the base building gameplay loop. They weren't just thinking
Mm-hmm.
of things from a realistic standpoint. Oh, here's a ship. Here's the concept. They thought about, okay, when you're building a ship, or so when you're building a building, and you're in the Pioneer, what is going to be annoying, right? And what is going to be a great experience? What's going to be not a great experience? And I think the resource extractors and landing gears came out of that, like, what is going to be a good experience? Same thing with the cargo SCU boost to the ship. CIG even
Mm.
stated they want you to be able to go and build your first building or two without having to fly back and resupply. I would hope they're taking that same thinking on into things like crafting, right? Where those
Mm-hmm.
crafting machines can access those cargo grids without us manually moving them. But that's my opinion. Some people like the physical nature of everything. Anything else
Yeah, that's
about, yeah, go
they
ahead.
didn't show a lot. They didn't show a lot about crafting. You know, they showed the machine that we saw in the mock-ups that they had shown us, you
Yeah.
know, in the CitizenCon 1.0 demo. It looks like they've got those kind of modeled out now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think we'll just have to wait and see what the tech preview brings.
Yeah, we're speaking about sort of crafting now. I'll swing over to one other thing that was at CitizenCon here. There was a talk about hauling and cargo missions that were inter-system, right? So they're going from system to system. So from Stanton to Pyro, Pyro to Nix, whatever. Um, again, I love that CIG is starting to look at some of the gameplay for ships of all size. We've had a lot of cargo focus on the medium range of ships, especially with Resource Drive and some others. It looks like these large cargo missions and just the entire cargo loading deck in Nyx is really focused around the Hull C, and you can extrapolate that to other ships like the Ironclad and Hull D and other ships that'll be made. So I like that CIG is doing that. They're really starting to show that they're not forgetting those other scales of gameplay loops that exist. I know for me as a whole C owner, I've sort of thought CIG forgot about the ship, but it's nice to see they haven't. Again, it goes back to what we've been talking about. Play these systems, test these systems so they can help inform future missions and future ships that they design, gameplay loops that they design, all that kind of stuff. So again, just wanted to mention those hauling and cargo missions. Not going to spend a lot of time on that just for the sake of time. Did you have anything about the intersystem cargo missions, Dusty?
No, just that I'm excited that they're, you know, making it possible
Yeah.
to have missions that go between systems.
Yeah.
You know,
Agreed.
I don't know if it would affect smaller cargo missions. You know, if there'd be something like for different factions where we would be doing missions where you could use a Zeus or a smaller ship.
Mhm.
You know, I hate for it to be limited to the whole sea only.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. let's continue on here. Now we're going to talk about a topic we're well suited to talk about. We're going to talk about new ships for a minute. Um, we had 3 new ships talked about and released here at CitizenCon. I'm sure all of you know these quite well. We had the Anvil Paladin, a heavy combat vessel, now equipped with a small cargo bay on the lower deck. So there was some changes made to that. At the same time, this was a newer concept ship that went into production. So the final ship that was released to us during CitizenCon, very close to the concept. Not a lot of huge surprises here. It wasn't like CIG had to go back and make a lot of drastic changes to the ship. Again, because it was a newer concept. So we're going to talk about the Paladin here in a second. We also had the Gray's Market Shiv. This was a hybrid ship constructed of various components from other manufacturers, Drake, Crusader, Misk, etc. Personally was excited by this one, and we'll talk about it as well. This was a ship that was sort of born from the Squadron 42 universe. We have seen this ship pop up in some Squadron 42 gameplay demos or walkthroughs before. And then last but not least, we had the Asperia Stinger. This is a replica of the Vandal Stinger, is best I think I understood. It's a heavy fighter, so comparable ships for this would be something like the F8 or the Scorpius, something like that. But let's circle back and let's talk about the Anvil Paladin first. Dusty, I'm going to hand it right over to you first. What are your thoughts on the Anvil Paladin?
It has physicalized components.
It does have physicalized components. That's true. I took it for
So
my
I
first
was
spin
happy
last
about
night.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the most exciting thing for me for factory service manual creation, being able to get in there and tinker and play with the ship's internal parts.
It also has
The other
working
two,
flight
not so
surfaces.
much. Yeah, I did see those moving. That's exciting. Um, Other than that, I think, for combat focused players, I'm sure they're enjoying it.
Yeah. The Paladin is a ship I really like. I love the design of it. I think CIG did an incredible job bringing it from concept to flight ready. It's not a ship for me. I don't particularly have a need for it, but I have lots of friends that do own it, so that ability is always there to join them, be a part of their crew. One
Mm-hmm.
thing I would say about the Paladin is, to me, when I saw the Paladin, I'm going to freeze it right here for a second. CIG, much like they did with the Polaris, much like they did with the Apollo and several other ships recently, they've really upped the exterior game, right? The design accents, the decal work, the palm decal stuff, panels, layered panels and overlapping panels. Essentially, the fidelity, the exterior level of detail is just incredible on the Paladin. I mean, they knocked it out of the park. The only thing with that is, my God, does the Carrack need attention bad? Well, as soon as I saw the Paladin,
Yeah.
it was the first thing I thought of. I was like, please, CIG, go back and give the Carrack the love it deserves. Its exterior is so smooth and plain and featureless that when I saw the Paladin, I was almost just overwhelmed by the amount of detail and like little, design elements that are included there, that if the Carrot got this level of attention on the exterior, it would probably become my favorite ship again. So,
Mm-hmm.
what did you think about that? I mean, obviously, ships have really been like getting better and better looking, obviously, over the last couple of years, especially since the
For
Polaris went into
sure.
production. The Polaris sort of instantly became the high watermark for ships, I think, for CIG. And now we've seen that carried over into other ships and smaller ships, such as the Apollo. I think the Apollo really blew people away on its exterior. I think the Perseus is going to do the same thing. Um, what are any thoughts on that? Do you think that when CIG creates a ship like the Paladin, where the exterior is so incredible that when they go back to do gold passes on older ships, should they make an effort to bring those exteriors up as well? Or do you think they should sort of keep them as is, exterior wise, just design aesthetic? Obviously, the gold passes should happen for function,
Yeah,
reasons, but
I think it depends on the ship.
yeah.
Like at some point, like take the Constellation for example. Those probably are going to need like a Mark V, right? Like
Hmm.
the models are probably too old. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Now they've created the Apollo, the Zeus. I saw the concepting that you guys did. That was super
Yep.
cool. I'd imagine that instead of trying to rebuild the ship with today's tech, it would be easier just to build a new ship in today's tech that
Yep.
resembles the old ship, So
Yeah.
I don't know where the Carrack fits into all of that. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know what tech it was built on, or if it's too old to go back and try to redo, or if they would have to make a new Carrack in order to do all that.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know if that ship gets rebuilt. It's a massive project to do.
I
So
think
I'd imagine they would fix what they have to
I
get
think
it
the
up to
first
date.
I think the first good example of this might end up being what they do with the Apollo. We know the Apollo is getting a gold standard pass. We know there's things on the exterior that need to change, probably. It's going to be interesting to see where CIG goes with that. Do they try to preserve the exterior look of the ship as much as possible, or
Which
do
ship?
they,
Which ship?
the
You said
Aurora?
Apollo, but
Oh,
I think
sorry, I meant
the
the
Aurora.
Aurora. The
Okay.
Aurora. Sorry about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Aurora. Or do they lean into the fact that, hey, we're doing a new pass on this, it needs updated, we're going to change a bunch of shit. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where they go with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
just
Is
used
it
the
a
Carrack as an
completely new
example.
model?
Yeah, or could
Yeah.
it
No, I
be?
think
Yeah.
that's
Real
yeah.
quick,
I
everybody.
love the newer ships for sure. The detail on the exteriors is just phenomenal.
Yeah, and I mean, look, it's not that the Carrack is bad or anything. It's just that when you
Mm-mm.
put it next to some of these ships, it's like, oh wow. And CIG's even talked about that in relation to the Polaris and other capital ships such as the Idris. We know the Aegis has a new exterior for Squadron, but CIG even mentioned in the past that the Polaris sort of brought up the visual standards so much that it was going to require CIG to
Mm-hmm.
go back and look at some ships to sort of get them up to par. So, real quick, shout out to Javi Chui. Hopefully, I said that right. Pyromaniac Bracer and Rem EXPL 100. Hopefully, I said that all right. Thank you for the follows. Really appreciate it. Bracer Phoenix gave me a stretch, so I am going to sit up. I am slouching. Thank you for that stretch. I appreciate it. Um, yeah, so Anvil Paladin. Again, I really like it. Glad it's in the game. Not a ship I need to own, but definitely a ship I will crew. Let's talk about the next one. Let me make sure I'm talking about the right one here. We're going to talk about the Asperia Stinger. This is
Mm.
the first ship to come into the game that's Vandal that is sort of carrying the new Vandal aesthetic, this sort of new Vandal art direction. Obviously, we have some Vandal ships in the game now, but they're using the old aesthetic. Initial impressions of the Stinger.
It's beautiful. It's a piece of art.
Yeah, that's been the thinking from everyone I know who I've talked to who saw it. Myself, Ender, and VMXEO checked it out in a hangar together the other day, and that was kind of the sentiment
Mhm.
there too. It's like, wow, this thing's a work of art. Like it's beautiful. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah, that's a lot of the ships for me in Star Citizen.
yep,
I collect them as art pieces more
yep.
so than for their function in game. Of course, I have my favorites like the Freelancer Max that needs a lot of love.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it kind of does. Um, I was really excited by the Stinger. I'm not really big into Vandal ships. I am excited to
Mm-mm.
get these into Fleet Viewer, to be totally honest with you. But I'm not super into Vandal ships. But you know, hearing that or seeing that this one was bringing over that new art style and knowing that this is a sign of things to come for the old Vandal ships, those new art styles for them are going to come over too. I am excited about that. I have to admit I was a little disappointed that the ship Q&A for the Stinger mentioned that the other ships will get updated when Squadron releases. I assume that is just because
Mm-hmm.
CIG wants to hold a few things back, and or there's maybe some additional art that needs to be done to those ships to get them switched over from their Squadron look and feel to the PU look and feel, and that could be things related to weapon hard points or other stuff. So we don't totally know
Right.
yet, but
Did you get to fly the Stinger a bit? The sound of that ship is incredible.
I only flew it in so much as I sort of lifted off the floor of the hangar and did some turns and
Oh
stuff. I
man.
did not fly it yet. It is in my hangar. only because
Yeah.
CIG graciously drops the new ships in my hangar just to try out for stream. So I do appreciate that, CIG. Thank you. It makes it easy. Then they take them away. I just gonna say they do take them away. They do take them away,
Oops.
but I get to try them, and I'm going to check out. I want to check out the Stinger in a combat scenario too, because the funny thing is I actually think it
Hmm.
could play into my preferred type of gameplay style of like combat style, where I want to get in there and sort of be a brawler, have a lot of hit
Hmm.
points, and not be so fragile. So I am looking forward to that. The sound team has done an amazing job on several ships lately. The Apollo's got some really cool sounds. The Kruger Wolf is absolutely amazing. Some of the sound stuff they
Hmm.
did for that, so it does not surprise me. This ship sounds amazing. I want to get in there and hear that now. I think in general
Yeah.
the sound team has really been knocking it out of the park the last 18 months with ship engine sounds. Um, so yeah, it's great to see. Um, any other thoughts about the Stinger? I mean, obviously, this one is supposed to. It's a heavy fighter. It's supposed to sort of play and compete against ships like the Scorpius, the F8, things like that. I'm not sure where it sits against all those ships. Sort of that heavy fighter class of ships. I'm not sure of where its sweet spot is. I currently do own a Scorpius and an F8. I like them for different reasons. The F8's my favorite one to do combat in. The Scorpius is just my favorite looking of the fighters. Um, any do you do any gameplay in heavy fighters? Any sort of combat gameplay there? Does where it fit have any bearing for you, or do you just sort of like it for what you said, for what it is as a piece of art?
Yeah. I do try to do combat in ships, but I
Mhm.
always end up slamming into the other ship or,
Yeah.
dying from some weird reason. So I'm definitely not a combat pilot by trade.
Yeah.
You know. So I'm
No,
probably not the best judge of whether this ship's gonna be the new meta. I doubt it would be because it's so big,
yeah.
but it's definitely fun to fly. And when you shoot the guns on it, the whole ship kind of shakes. Like
Yeah.
it feels extremely powerful when you're using the ship.
Yeah, and it's got a set of red headlights, which
Yeah.
apparently gets everyone excited. Just like the Gray's Market Shiv has green headlights. um, yeah, it's an interesting ship. I'm glad to see some of that Vandal stuff come into game again. Linking back to Nyx and these Vandal raids. Um, I am kind of excited now. Again, I wasn't excited before, but seeing the Stinger, knowing about the Vandal raids, knowing that the other Vandal ships are going to get updated in the future, and then we got that hint along with the what's it called? Let me make sure I get it right here. Stand by. The tactical strike group stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The hint of the Vandal Mauler, which is I believe, a capital. It's essentially a Vandal destroyer. I believe is what the Mauler is.
Was that the one at the end that just kind of came
Comes
in
through
for
the
just a
things. Yeah,
second?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Mauler. From everything we know, not that CAG hasn't changed some of this in the interceding years, but everything we know, the Mauler is a Vandal destroyer. The Vandal destroyer somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 to 500 meters long. It's like javelin size, but Vandal.
Wow. Okay.
So it is a big ship, and I think that's kind of the big surprise. Sorry, I ruined it in the tactical strike group thing. So there we go. Again, not to say that CIG hasn't made it bigger or smaller or changed its role completely, but the last sort of information we had was that the Mauler was a cruiser or a destroyer, something like that. It was one of those types of ships, and it's a big one. It's like a
Hmm.
capital size ship, around that 400, 500 meter range. So, all right, last but not least, let's talk briefly about. Oops, we just got something. What was that? Stand by. I don't know what that was. I got a chime, but I don't know what it was. A chime happened. Okay, we'll keep going. Sorry, I don't know what it is. Real quick, we're going to go to the last ship that we're talking about, and that is the Gray's Market Shiv. Again, another
Mm.
ship we have seen in the Squadron 42 stuff, and that ship. Oh, actually, wait a minute. One second. One second. Do we have a hand raised? I thought we did. Maybe. Just making sure we don't have a hand raised here. No, we don't. Okay. The Grays Market Shiv, um, another ship we've seen in the squadron stuff. Again, it's a kind of a chop shop ship, borrows parts and pieces from other ships. I would have to imagine this ship interests you, even if you don't particularly like the
Mm-hmm.
ship. I would have to think it interests you a lot, just because of its origin. So, do you want to speak a little bit on this one?
Sure. Yeah, it definitely caught my eye right away. It was, the first ship, that I needed to get from CitizenCon.
Yeah,
And
me too. It's the
yeah,
only one I bought.
yeah, it's a beautiful ship. I like the aesthetic of it. It fits the scrapyard vibe that gets me excited about the game.
Hmm.
It fits into the salvage yards. So yeah, I'm all for it. I understand it came from Squadron, so it's very old model wise. It doesn't have physicalized components like the Cutlass Black.
Yeah,
Um, it'll probably get updated when the Cutlass gets updated with physical components. I'd imagine they will
yeah.
do all of the Cutlass variants, including the Shiv, when they add those.
Hmm.
There's definitely places for them inside the ship, so I'm sure they'll get them in eventually. But yeah, it's a very cool ship, and I hope that they come out with a few more. I saw a post that someone put on Reddit that had like an Aurora gray market ship.
Oh, interesting. I haven't
So
seen that.
apparently there's a few different ones in Squadron, not just
Oh,
that one.
yes, I have seen one other Graysmarker ship in the squadron thing. It looked like a cross between like a maybe an Aurora and a Hornet. It was definitely more of like a fighter sort of looking type
Yeah, it had
ship.
really cool wings that
Yeah,
were kind of like angled. Yeah,
yeah.
I got excited when I saw that one. So maybe we'll get that one too before
Oh,
Squadron.
I would love to get a I would love to get a whole line of these. I really think they're exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I It does feel like the Shiv is like a ship that didn't get brought up to standard, like the current game standard, which is okay because I do think they'll circle back around to it. If I could make one change to the ship, I wish it did have at least even just on one side, a side door that could be open. That would have been
Yep.
really cool. That's the only knock I give it. Everything else about this ship I love. It was the only ship I purchased actually from CitizenCon.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I love the Stinger, love the Paladin, but this is super interesting, very Star Wars esque, believe it or not. This looks like it'd be sitting in a
Mm-hmm.
scrapyard on Jakku or something. It just has personality, and I think that's what I like about it. I love that CIG carried that aesthetic all the way over into the weapons and stuff. I just think that is really, really cool. Um, they put out a great lineup of ships for this CitizenCon. Now let's knock them a little bit. There has been some
Mm-hmm.
complaints that all three ships are combat focused, right?
Yep.
I've heard this from a lot of people, saying I'm really disappointed. Actually, real quick, one second. Question from Socially Confused. Socially Confused was in the Zoom, so I want to make sure we get to his question. And I will circle back to some other questions very briefly for the sake of time, people. But it says, now that the Shiv is revealed, do you change your opinion on the Flappy Bird manufacturer? He's talking about the Drake Flappy Bird silhouette. I would say yes. I was originally thinking that could be Gray's Market. I am still thinking now that I'm going back to my original um, thought that is a Drake ship. I think it is essentially, and I could be
Mm-hmm.
wildly wrong here. I think it is literally a Corsair. I don't think it's any more like crazy than that. I've talked with Execute at length about all the different things this ship could be. I've talked to Trispone a lot about what this ship could be. Wild speculations. I think I'm just sort of keeping my speculation on this one in check. I think it's just a cut down Corsair. I think CIG looked at the Corsair. They said, "Man, a lot of people use this thing for combat, and it's really not for that. It does do combat, but it's more of a general purpose exploration or expedition ship, whatever they call them." And they're like, "What if we gave them their combat Corsair, but we cut off all the exploration stuff, right? So you don't need to carry around the vehicle and all that stuff anymore." So I think it's just a mini Corsair that's kind of a heavy, like Drake doesn't have a heavy fighter. I think it's a heavy
Hmm.
fighter from Drake. And before people say, yeah, but it wouldn't make any sense because it'd have a huge cross section with those wings. Well, the
Yeah.
Corsair is a combat explorer and it's got a huge cross section. I don't think Drake cares about cross sections. So, with that in mind, I would
It
love if
looks
it's
small
something.
though.
It does look kind of small. Here's the thing. I would love if Drake, if it is something different. I think Execute has talked about some sort of extractor ship. We've talked about maybe a bounty hunting ship. I'd love for it to be those things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just staying realistic, and I think it's just a Drake heavy
Mm-hmm.
fighter cut down Corsair. That's what I think it is. So,
Hmm.
um,
Interesting.
but there's our three ships, everyone: Paladin, Shiv, Stinger. If you have any comments or thoughts on those, feel free to post it down there for everyone to see. Obviously, we focus a lot on ships. Um, Here's one thinking, Dusty. I'd be curious what your thought is. Obviously, we're getting another big combat ship at IAE, most likely in the Perseus. Um,
Mm-hmm.
are you hoping for some more industrial ships or commercial based ships to fill out the lineup for IAE?
Yeah, I was a little disappointed that we didn't get any industrial ships
Yep.
with CitizenCon this year. I think it would have been nice to see the RSI salvage ship that they teased, or another. Last year we got the Star Lancer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that ship just, it hit me in the heart. That was like the perfect ship, right? It was beautiful, big. It was like the Freelancer Max on steroids, so it
Yeah.
was like a no-brainer. Um, this year with a lot of smaller combat ships, I feel like, yeah, I was a little bit let down that they didn't come out with something that was a little more the type of gameplay I enjoy, which is, salvage, cargo hauling,
Yeah.
repair, refuel, that kind of stuff.
I wonder if we know crafting is coming. We know it's coming to the EPTU. We haven't seen CIG release a ship that plugs into gameplay loops, new gameplay loops that are only on the EPTU at that time. We haven't seen that yet. But
Mm.
I would really love if we got a crafting ship. I secretly hope that is what that consolidated Outland medium ship is some little medium crafter ship that you can fly anywhere and
Yeah,
craft stuff for people.
the Pioneer Light.
The Pioneer Light. Yeah, I really hope
Yep.
that's what it is. I'm right there in agreement with you. I hope that IAE brings a few more salvage ships our way, possibly in the form of the RSI starter salvager. But what I'm really interested in is that salvage ship that sits in between the Vulture and the Reclaimer, the one that
That's
sits.
the Argo one, right?
That's possibly the Argo one. We'll
Mm-hmm.
see. They mentioned the orange salvage ship. Maybe that's what it is. I would love to see
Mm-hmm.
that. But yeah, I'm primarily an industrial player, so I would love to see at least one offering at IAE in the industrial category. Again, the big showstopper for IAE is going to be the Perseus, most likely. Obviously, that's heavy combat related,
Mm-hmm.
very, very specific combat related. So I just want to call out
Is it the Idris killer?
no, no, not with its
It's
size
not
eights.
gonna be the Idris killer.
It'll give the Idris a headache, and the Idris will need to deal with it. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it's going to, especially in the future, minus any exploits and stuff. It's going to have a hard time bringing down an Idris by itself. It combined with some other ships, though, could definitely be a major concern for the Idris. By the way, just a Lemmy says, Starjump Grim, someone posted a pic of a cat command module plus Corsair wings, and it really fit. That may be the
Hmm.
case. The only thing with that, though, is I was able to adjust the exposure and curves of the silhouette photo, and it was quite
Hmm.
clear that the canopy was not that of a command module. It's actually more of the canopy, and the adjustments I made looks very similar to something like a vulture or a mule canopy. It's a long,
Hmm.
vertical, slightly angled
Like the
canopy.
Golem.
Yeah, something like that. In the adjustments I made, it definitely did not look like a command module canopy. Not to say it's not a weird Frankenstein of them. Could be, but
I mean, it
um,
it would be nice though if the command module had wings that could come out for atmosphere, as they
yeah,
start that type of atmospheric flight stuff.
yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that would be really cool. I just actually let me fast forward. Where am I at? That's crafting. We're gonna move down here for our next discussion. I think this is it. Yeah. Um, for the sake of time, we're going to keep moving, everybody. We're going to talk about one more major topic and then a few little smaller things, and then we'll do our giveaway. The major topic I wanted to talk about, though, was the thing they sort of wrapped up CitizenCon on, and that was the tactical strike groups, the strategic space combat, which uses, I believe it uses instance systems. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But regardless, the Tactical Strike Groups, which is a new large scale mission format emphasizing strategic space combat and combined arms operations, currently in early development. It promotes a diverse set of ship roles, collaboration, and integrated gameplay. Again, one of the things I highlighted there is that a capital ship will not be able to just come in and mow everything down. There's going to be big PDCs on on the station that will be able to destroy capital ships. The overview of the mission is that players will assist in defending a vessel under assault by an unidentified enemy faction and rescue hostages from a captured station. Following defense against fighter waves, the engagement shifts to a fortified enemy station equipped with a Vandal anti-capital weaponry and shielded defenses. Power relays must be neutralized using ballistic munitions to disable the shield, allowing entry into the station. And then once inside, the objective is to deactivate the power core, initiate a time meltdown, and neutralize the station. Hostages can then be extracted. As the core destabilizes, a Vandal fleet arrives with their role remaining ambiguous. This got a lot of people excited that I knew that are in big orgs with big that want to do big fleet operations. Um,
Mhm. The thing everything in there sounded completely possible with the
mhm.
tech we have today until they said hostages can be then extracted.
I'm glad you brought that up.
That was the only thing I was like, "Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. How does that work?" Because I haven't really seen anything like that. Are they in a box
hmm
or
Like, are
are
they in
these,
a cryo box, or are we
yeah, like
restraining them or leading them? Yeah.
yeah, so that like everything sounded totally doable until they said that. And that was the part that kind of threw me a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I hope it's just not them standing around and us tractor beaming them, but if hopefully they're in sort of cryo boxes or something like that, or maybe there's these like the bounty hunting boxes are coming. Maybe that's what they're factoring in. I mean, again, this is early development, but yeah, that stuck out to me too. The other thing that stuck out to me was the complexity of this event. You just heard me
Mhm.
walk through it, and the reason I walked through every step of this was because hopefully CIG puts, because I don't think the current contract manager is cutting it for these large, complex, multi-phase missions that have all types of things you need to factor and consider. The current mission contracts are wildly insufficient for that. Most of the big events that I've done over the past 18 months in Star Citizen, especially if it was a larger event, I had to get told how to do it from other players who
Mhm.
hammered through it. And there are those players that are going to go in there, they're going to figure it out, they're going to break the thing apart, keep hammering on that anvil until they get through a wall. But my concern is the everyday player, the newbie that comes into the game, the people that Star Citizen is not their life, it's not every day for them. How are they going to be in the future able to join in on missions like this or be a part of these and be a useful, whether it's crew member, you're an engineer person or a mechanic on a ship, all the way to a turret gunner or an FPS person that's going to board the space. How do you get up to speed on these large, complicated mission sets? And for
I think
me,
the way you do it today,
yeah,
you watch YouTube videos.
yes, yes, yes,
I
exactly.
think that'll be the way you learn the
Well,
game.
in some ways, yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I almost wonder if with CIG with these should put out video primers that not only can be accessed on YouTube or stuff, but they can be accessed from the launcher. So when they put out
Mhm.
a patch that this is the core feature, one of these tactical strike things, there's a link to a video from CIG from that. They need to get the contract manager a little bit more detailed, a little bit more specific with tab breakdowns and phase breakdowns and really get into it. That's the only thing that stuck out to me. When I saw this, I was like, this looks really,
Mhm.
really cool. But my God, talking a new player through this, not even a new player, it could be a veteran player who's just been away for a month and they come back and they're like, what the hell is it? What am I doing? You know what I mean? It's like just a way to get
Yeah.
people primed and understanding what the goal is. Now, when I talk to Art, and I know Art's away right now, Art is in a very large guild or org that does big operations. They're well organized, they're well put together. I'd love to pose this question to him when some when you guys are doing something, how do you get organized? How do you stay organized? I think those tools will come when we get some of those
Hmm.
expanded social functions like the org tools, the party tools, and all that. We're going to be able to assign people roles in this. So when someone jumps on your ship, you can assign them the turret role and all this stuff, and that will help. But in terms of just the overall mission information, I do think we need, I'm going to use this word again, more fidelity there in terms of how the information is disseminated to us. Um,
I'm imagining though that this will be treated more like a raid, and it will be
yeah,
instance and similar to some of the stuff they showed with Arena Commander multi-crew,
yep,
where maybe people sign up and you need at least two capital ships, five heavy fighters, five ballistic fighters. Like I don't know. I feel like
yeah,
somehow you have to be able to self-organize, but you need some sort of template to make sure that you've got everything, or else you're just kind of wasting time if you go in there without ballistics, for example.
yeah,
Like not knowing what you're doing. I feel like I don't know.
yeah,
Like everyone's played a raid in probably other games like World of Warcraft, like I have, and how many times have you gone in there and key members haven't read the how to do the raid? Like you
yeah,
go in there and it shows you every boss and what the attacks are and everything. Like if you don't read that and you just go in and you wipe the whole raid,
yeah.
similar I'd imagine would happen here.
And it's okay. I mean, just like those old raids, I do think it's okay for there to be some effort required by the player to learn what they need to do, talk to individuals, figure out their role to play here. With this event specifically, though, one of the things with it is there's going to be a role for example, an FPS person. There's going to be a role for someone just flying an arrow in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
How with these big events, how do you organize your players? How do you give everyone the tasks they need to do, right? So again, it's going to be a core thing, a core problem that CIG deals with for all their missions, but especially these long event, complex chains. I would hope that along with this, because this is in early development, I would hope along with this, we get something like the org and party system update and
Yes.
tools that come into
Yes.
game. Imagine
Mm-hmm.
doing a big instanced event, especially if it's instanced, where you're pulling in your people to do something like this. Imagine having the tools to better organize and better execute those events. I do feel a little bit, and again, I'm not in a big, well organized org like the Luna Wolves. Shout out Puma Shaman, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in a big organized group like that yet. But um, I would think they want this stuff too, even though they probably already have ways of organizing themselves now. I would think they're in desperate need of this stuff too. And the more
Mm-hmm.
organized we can be through org and party tools, that may help inform CIG how to build missions like this in the future, where they need to put those breadcrumbs to help lead us and all that kind of stuff. So again, it's really exciting. When I was watching it, I was going, okay, wait a minute. Okay, so we did that. Now they're going to this. And oh, okay, now the missions are, oh, nope, Vandal fighters are coming in. It was like, God, it's like more and more and more and more and more. And then how long do these missions take? Is this
That's what I
like
was
a
thinking.
raid? Is it five
You're gonna have
hours?
to bring food and drinks and like have little coffee breaks in between like sections, right?
Yeah. And again, these aren't bad things, by the way, everyone. They're just things that
Yeah.
come to mind when I was watching the
Hmm.
presentation. When I watched it, again, I thought this is cool as hell. I had people message me in large orgs saying, "This is what I've been waiting for." And I was like, awesome. I'm glad this excites you. I would just, as I was watching it, was like concern. I don't know. That's concern. So, but again,
Yeah.
for the sake of time, though, we're going to push right along. One of the things they mentioned in relation to this event, though, was ship hangar rearm and refuel capabilities. Thank you,
Hmm.
CIG. Coming to the Idris and Polaris. I imagine that will come for the Kraken as well once the Kraken eventually releases. So very cool. Nice to see. Um, Couple other things. I'm not going to talk too much about the weapons. I know they did talk about the weapons. They talked about some binoculars. We're not going to go too much into that. Um, they did say that the ship release lineup for this upcoming year is to be more comprehensive. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I am excited for the stuff being worked on. I do hope we get some updates. I was hoping we'd get a Kraken concept review at this year's CitizenCon. We did not get that. I think the more I've heard, though, I feel like the concept, even though the ship has moved into production, based off some stuff I've heard, I feel like it's still sort of going through concept revisions. So, um,
What about at DefenseCon? You know, when they have the little preview
yeah,
area where you can look at the future Holo viewer. What if it's completely different this year, that one?
that'd be cool. I mean, here's the thing. I do think the Kraken, just so everyone's very clear, I think the Kraken is still going to look like the Kraken. It's still going to be our giant USS Flag aircraft carrier, battleship Yamato. It's still going to look like the Kraken, but I do think there's going to be some significant changes to the interior of the ship and some exterior changes as well. But overall, it's going to look like. But that would be cool. Going back to your point, Dusty, if they showed us that update at DefenseCon, it would be a good place to show it. I think that would be really cool. So. Um,
Yeah, that would.
they did talk a little bit about the road to 1.0. Richard Tyler talked a little bit about that. Nothing too crazy there, except that there's no shifts in strategic direction, which is good to hear. I don't want any shifts. I like the 1.0 roadmap. I hope they stick with that and continue pushing forward with that. Dusty, any thoughts on that? Do you like the 1.0 vision they laid out last year?
Yeah, I think it's pretty comprehensive.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really notice anything that was, you know, that kind of threw me off at all.
Yeah.
I am a little worried about all the reputation that you would need to get. I thought it was interesting that there was manufacturer reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's to get a blueprint. Like if I wanted to build an Argo SRV that, you know, maybe had better stats than the current one, maybe it has a gun mount on it or something. Um, you know, I would have to earn reputation with Argo somehow, and I don't
Right.
know what that means.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. I'm trying to understand. Like, I understand the guilds. You know, as
Yeah.
far as joining the guild, doing missions for the guild, earning rep with the guild, getting the you know, some custom paints and skins and outfits or whatever that kind of
Yeah.
match that you're working for them. But I'm trying to understand what they might do there with the manufacturer reputations.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good point. And you would think there'd be ways to get bootleg ones. You know what I mean? Maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
a set of blueprints for an Argo raft, but it's like a slightly lesser quality Argo raft, you know, or slightly less quality blueprints. Although I don't know if blueprints have quality to them or if it's just the materials you put in. Either way, yeah, I would like some multiple ways to get to some of those blueprints so they're not always locked behind certain things. So, for example, if you wanted a really cool combat ship, but let's say you're not great at
Mm-hmm.
combat, I hope that there's a way to get the blueprints for that without being a really good combat pilot and rising up that guild's rank. Maybe there's a side path to get that blueprint that's not
Mm.
combat related, you know, maybe it's stealing something or whatever the case may be. I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. But everyone, that's mostly it. We've gone through a lot of stuff, but for the sake of time, we are going to get close to wrapping it up here. We do have a Star Citizen CitizenCon goodies pack to give away, so we're going to do that. There is the link in chat. Go ahead and enter that. While I'm giving you 5 more minutes to get in on that, I'm going to take just a few questions. I'm going to scroll through, grab a few questions. I'm sorry I can't get them all. It's been a super busy day, and we're running out of time. So I know you all forgive me because you're all amazing people. So I'm going to grab a few questions and then we'll do the giveaway. Okay. And that's for Star Citizen Goodie Bag. All right. Scrolling through here, taking some questions. I know Art pulled a couple questions for me. Grab them. Headford says, actually, let me move this out of the way because I got a window in the way. Headford says, has confused. The Nix will start with one planet without planets. Um, I'll try to decipher that and state that no, I think Nix will come with, unless I'm wrong here, I assume that Nix was coming with all of its planets, just not fully built out, meaning not all the point of interests, not all the, people integrated. I think it's still going to have the planets themselves there, though. You just may not have all the
I
POIs
don't
and mission
know.
structure, but I'm not sure.
I'm thinking that they said that Nix One was going to use the new planet tech
Yeah.
and come out in 2026, and I don't think they would put the planet in without the new planet tech. Then they have to build it twice.
And if that's coming 2026, and we know that Nix is supposed to come out like in like a month, what would
Just
be in it?
Levski.
Just Levski. That's
Yeah,
what everyone thinks.
the asteroids, Levski, and probably a splotch of red in the distance where the Van Duel stuff is.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure. C Daddy CIG, maybe you could clear that up for us if you're still in chat. will Nyx launch with all of the planets and just not fully filled out with POIs and missions and all that? Or is it Nyx launching with Levski and none of the other stuff? So, C Daddy, if you're in chat and want to answer that, feel free. If not, oh, he did mention it already. What did he mention, Wolf? It will be like Stanton. Start with station and added as they are ready. So added the planets as they are ready. Okay. There you go.
Mm.
I was mistaken. I thought it was going to be all the planets come in with just not the POIs done. And the reason I thought that is because if you go all the way back, I understand they're redoing the planets with Genesis, but if you go all the way back to I think it's like 2023 on the subscriber vault, they were putting out all the planets and Nyx as renders. They were showing them what they look like. Now that was pre-Genesis, but I didn't know if they were just
Mm-hmm.
going to put those in there. So, okay, interesting. So Levski and the Glacium Ring. There we go. You heard it here first, folks. Actually, you heard it here last. Moving on to the next question. Our pulled one here. I don't know who asked this one. Sorry. He says, with all the content for 2026 being content related, do you think it's a continuation of 2025's year of playability? So I think he's just asking essentially with all the stuff they showed coming to us in the next 12 months, it all looks sort of like mission content and story content and stuff. Do we think that's what 2026 is going to be, or do we see new features coming on board? I don't know what you think, Dusty. I think new features are coming this year, base building and crafting for
Yeah,
sure.
we're getting. Well, I don't know that we're going to get base building or crafting. I think we'll get the instancing stuff that they're
Mm-hmm.
working on, and I think we'll get the new planet tech. At least one planet, probably in Nyx,
Mm-hmm.
to start with. But I don't know. I think if crafting hits tech preview, I think that's good. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it'll be ready in 2026.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, I'm probably on the hopium of base building, but I at least hope we get a tier one of base building this year. Maybe it's the small buildings with the hover cart that we can build and
Mm-hmm.
no more, but we'll have to see. I obviously engineering I think is coming for sure this year. They've been doing a lot of planning for that. Crafting's already going to be coming to us on the EPTU, so I could see that landing in a more finalized or at least a tier one version into the PU later in the year, maybe, but we'll have to see. Um, Question from Daniel Frenchburn, Starjump. Question: do you think the Shiv could be the foundation of a new salvage gameplay where you will need to find parts and later on build your own ship? Dusty, I'm gonna sling that one over to you.
Yeah, I would hope so. I really like the idea of being able to salvage bigger chunks of ships
Mm-hmm.
or craft bigger chunks of ships. One of the most frustrating things for me as a repair mechanic gameplay kind of guy is if you break a wing off of your ship, like there's no way to heal that with the repair tool and there's nowhere to buy that. I'd love to be able to go to like Dumpers Depot and buy a wing for a Zeus or for a Cuddy and be
Yep.
able to install that back on using, even if you had to do it there, like you look through that little window and they have like the welding thing
Mm-hmm.
working on the ship.
Yeah,
Like if we even
be
if you
really
had
cool.
something like that where you parked your ship in the hangar, shut the door, and you could see the little sparks happening, and it was putting the wing on,
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That would be really nice.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know though if that's intended to become a gameplay loop for salvage, but we can dream about it and we can pretend it's there until they make it.
Yep. Yep. Going to move on to our final question. Then we're going to do the giveaway, everybody. Sorry again, I couldn't get through all the questions. There was a lot of great questions. We are working on the bot. Please bear with me. The bot is complicated, but it's being worked on. Question from I50mm question. If they instance these raids or missions, can't they break it down into chapters? Would they? Question mark. Would we want that to break down would they essentially what he's asking is if these are indeed instanced, would we want them to break these quote unquote raids down into chapters, so individual instances, so that they are not a 5-hour endeavor, so that they're sort of broken down
Mm-hmm.
into sort of 1 hour chunks or 2 hour chunks. I'll answer this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll answer this
Mm.
one first, in that I really think that's needed. Um, the player base that plays Star Citizen There's a lot of us. They're older players. We have responsibilities. We don't have the ability to do 8-hour gaming sessions. I think it would be really smart for CIG to do that, to break these long events down into smaller chapters and or missions that you can jump in and out of, that for the time you were there, you still get rewarded, in relation to the time you invested. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I don't know how they would do that, but thoughts on that, Dusty?
Well, I mean, I know in our org, we have events almost every week, it seems like, and we do what's called a 24-hour event.
Mm,
And we have people all over the world in different time zones that take over kind of the leadership role as the events rotate around the clock, right?
mm-hmm,
And and then we sell everything we make and we split it between everybody who wants a cut. And so I'd imagine that with instancing, like a raid like what they showed, I don't think is going to be like a multi-day kind of event. I'd imagine that would be probably done in 3 to 4 hours. If you have a really talented crew, you could probably get it done in 2 hours.
mm-hmm,
Um, but thinking about longer term, like if there was a war event, where there was objectives and people who participate in the event and complete that section could get an achievement where they could replay that section, but it unlocks the next section. I
mm-hmm.
think that would be cool if there was some sort of achievement system.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then they could spread it out, and you could just focus on each section. Like I'm like you, I've got a lot of responsibilities. I only get a couple of hours to play a week.
Same.
And so, you got to pick and choose what you're going to do, and
Yeah.
being able to jump in and get an achievement for at least a part of a raid or part of a longer term event, that would be great.
And other MMOs have really made an effort to do that too, just because they know the ability for people to just put 10 hours into something a day is just ridiculous, or even 6 hours. So, there's been other MMOs, Warcraft is another good example, that have made efforts to make the barrier of entry to the raids, um, you
Hmm.
know, commiserate with the time generally people have. So again, I would like to see that. So yeah, 100% agree with that. Oh, we just got a raid. Axis0096. Thank you very much for that raid. Appreciate it. Giving you the double salute. Thanks for bringing your community over here. We really appreciate it. We are getting close to wrapping up, but don't worry, you came in at a great time. We do have a giveaway. I'll post the link to that in just a second. Everyone in chat, if you, by the way, I believe someone did ask me, was I disappointed there was no silhouette video? Yes, I was very disappointed, just so you know. Very, very disappointed. CIG, fix it. John Crew, Ben Curtis, if you're watching, if one of you are watching, or if one of you eventually sees this, please just do the silhouette video yourself and release it. Appreciate it. Thank you for all the follows today, everyone. If you all have a moment, do not forget our good buddy. Oh, Pacman, thank you for subscribing. Appreciate it. Salute to you. Don't forget our good buddy Starjump Ender's in a tough place in life right now. He's done a lot of stuff for Starjump, a lot of stuff for Starjump charity endeavors, especially in regards to Starjump's work with St. Jude. Last year, I think, hit the $40,000 or $50,000 raised mark. So incredible achievement. Starjump enters in his own challenging time period in his life right now, having just lost his job, having to move, going through some life stuff that is really bad on the family side. So if you want to help the boy out, go to his GoFundMe. Please help him out if you can, and only if you can. If you are within your means to do so, it's greatly appreciated. For those of you waiting for the giveaway, it is that time. It is definitely that time, everybody. Oh, before we get to that, I'm going to post Dusty's channel one more time. Dusty, posting your YouTube channel in there. You do absolutely amazing content, man.
Thank
I
you.
hope you continue to do it and continue pushing out unique content. It's one of my big pet peeves when people do just the basic stuff that we've seen 1,000 times before. And I really appreciate that you do unique, interesting content that's just different from everyone else. So kudos to you. I really appreciate all the hard work you put into your stuff. So.
And to everybody out there, if you guys go to the Patreon, all of the factory service manuals and the new Drake compendium are free to download. You just got to put an email address in there.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay anything for any of it. So If you want to
But
put a dummy email address, you can, but it's all on Patreon. So if you guys want to download the manuals, they're all there, and you can get the link to it from the channel or any video.
But also remember, a lot of hard work goes into this stuff, everyone. Just like a lot of hard work goes into Fleet Viewer. We've always appreciated the support through Patreon. If you go over to Dusty's Patreon, please make sure to donate. You can find that link on the YouTube channel, right? You can find the Patreon link,
Yep.
Dusty. Yep, you can find that there.
Yep. Or you
Go
can go
over.
to or you can just go to thrustersandDust.com. It'll take you there.
Yeah, go over there, try to support, get the manuals. But if you can't support, try to support, because a lot of hard work goes in this stuff. You've heard the same from Urkel in the past when he felt like it was time to shut down Urkel, and people came out and supported. Support the people that make unique content. I've said this time and time again. There's a lot of standard content out there, but for the people that make unique stuff, try to support them, because it's hard to sort of rise above the noise in the Star Citizen content creation sort of world. So support that if you like it. Really appreciate it. Now, for those of you that have not entered the goodie pack giveaway, you have about 20 seconds to do so. Here's the link. I am going to switch over to that Gleam right now, and we're going to do that. Stand by, everyone. I'm going to pull it up, and we'll do a draw. I can't draw it live, like where I share my screen, because it doxes the person. Okay, so I got to do it off screen. We're going to use the trust method here. So please all trust me. We do have, I can tell you how many entries we have. We have 140 entries. So great job. We're going to go ahead and call a winner on this now. I'm moving to it, going to draw a winner, clicking draw a winner, and the winner is Hunter Stolte. Hunter Stolte, you have won the Star Citizen CitizenCon goodies pack. Really cool goodie pack, actually. I think CIG did a really good job on it on this one this year. You have won, Hunter. I do have your email. I will contact you via email and get that to you. For those of you that were in the Zoom today, thank you very much. I really appreciate you showing up. As a small little group of us, but it was fun to hang out for a minute as I was running around, because my house smelled like gas, so they got to experience that. Did a few little giveaways over there. I think hopefully they enjoyed that. For the rest of you, again, thanks for hanging out. Hold on for a minute, though, everyone, because you know what we got to do. We do it every time. We have to do this. We got to spread that love, right? We got to spread the love. That's part of what this is. We talked about someone earlier today. Oh, actually, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Stand by. Going through my thing here. Hold one. Hold one. All right. I'm going to send you over to someone we were talking about just a little bit earlier. We rated him earlier this week, but we're going to send the love again. Why not? We can do it more than once. Those of you on Twitch, we're going to send it over to Nonstop Bops. Great dude. I met him through Execute from the Info Runners. He's an awesome guy. Knows a lot about Vandal ships, so I'm sure he's talking about the Stinger over there. So going to send you over there. Everyone, I hope you had a great night. Dusty, thank you for being on tonight. It was a pleasure to have you. You're amazing. Your work is great. So thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and it's great meeting your community, and I've received a lot of love from you guys, so I really appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Have a great